Welcome back to another episode of TCP 221. We're here for the official team previews of 2022. And we're going to be splitting these over several episodes. You're also going to see these as their own individual clips. I say clips, they are like 30-minute plus clips. So if you wanted to watch each team individually, that'll be available. Otherwise, we're going to be packing a lot of these together in big episodes as we normally do. So this will be great for you. Hopefully, you'll get to watch how you please, either each team in your own time or like a whole chunk all at once. And we're going to be doing a whole chunk all at once today, fellas.
Nice. Yeah, it's a ton to get through. It feels like almost feels like an insurmountable task. I feel like NA this year is. I'm not sure. Like everyone's so high on APAC and them improving. I feel like that's also true, surely, for NA. I'm not sure if it's
true for everybody across the board, isn't it? True for all teams, isn't it?
Yeah. Is that
in
team
ways
that got worse?
It is. Maybe.
Some people would potentially say maybe Philly, although I think last year's results weren't great. So
nope.
I would say they could improve on those results. I don't know. I think everybody's somewhat improved. Just looking across all the rosters. I mean, we'll see if Mayhem improve or not, because they did make a Hawaii stage last year. They didn't make it much further than that, but that's the standard set now for Florida. So New Florida would have to at least reach something like that to be comparable. Otherwise, you would have to say that technically speaking, they're worse. But aside from that, I mean, just on roster quality wise, on paper, I can't complain. I feel like everyone's made some big moves.
In ways, I think everybody has improved, and then in other ways, it's difficult to even say. As diminishing and as minimizing as that is, because we're walking into a new game. So it's we have half our foot in the territory of trying to view this through Overwatch 1, and then half our foot going, okay, we're trying to look at these tea leaves. We're trying to like prescribe or assume some things, and it's difficult, and it's going to be a really fun like preview and power ranking season, because it really does feel like anybody could kind of be pretty good.
And we've actually already done one team preview. So if you're already on YouTube or Spotify or wherever, you can check out our last episode, number 220. It was the Shock team preview, extra long, because that basically was our episode of the week. And if you average that episode and 219 together, it's like two normal episodes instead of 1 4-hour episode and one like 1 hour and a half episode. I think last week was also a bit longer because we talked about the super retirement as well, which I think we wanted to give a bit more room for, as it was worthwhile to talk about. So that added a bit of extra time. But expect that the team previews from now on would be more bite-sized, as we plan to do NA in 2 halves and all of APAC in one go. And I mean, if we spend a lot of time on each team, it's going to be like a 7-hour episode. So that's why I said earlier, I think the clips we're aiming for is going to be something like 30 minutes, guys. So apologies if you wanted like a 1 hour and a half discussion about your team. Some teams I don't think you could even talk for really an hour and a half. And the Shock one is only that long as well because of the super stuff. So we will see. Some teams might be a little bit shorter, guys. Sorry. Maybe there's less players, maybe there's less to talk about. Some teams could be a bit longer because it's a bit more contentious. We'll have to sort of see where it goes. But without further ado, guys, this is it. Episode 221, Team Previews 2021, brought to you by Battlecrab, Refine Bean, Bronzebot Buhal, Chare, Prophet Picasso, Chris R34444, Cash67, Lolshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rex Zane, Volamel, Smooth Nuts, and Your Misery. We're going to start things out with the Atlanta Reign. And straight away, I mean, I have this team in my A tier for no particular reason. 10 points to Gryffindor, if you get that reference. And Atlanta, I think, are done. I think we're going to mostly try and focus on teams that are quote-unquote done with their rosters. We're like beginning of April now. I mean, we're getting close enough. Like a month out from live. Almost literally a month out from live, just about. And Atlanta made a pretty interesting signing due to, I think there was a change in the cutoff date for age eligibility to join the league. and it was changed to something like August the 31st. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. I believe it changed from July 31st to August 31st,
right?
Like unbeknownst to most people.
Interestingly,
yeah, which
also,
interesting.
Wasn't it only edited on like the 28th of February as well in the article?
That I don't remember.
I don't know. I have no idea why they changed it. I don't know if anyone does know, but
Lobbying.
It's oh, sorry. I do know why Sefi obviously asked. No. I think the real reason they changed it was because the season starting later,
right,
and meant that it pushed. They felt it was fair to push the dates back. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So that makes sense. But the specificity of the date change actually, funny enough, puts Speedily within range of being picked up. He's suddenly eligible, and Spectra, but we'll see if that happens at all. But Speedily is a pretty hyped up plan. He got picked up for the Atlanta Reign, just announced, probably the worst kept secret in this offseason next to like Yaki New York, because there were just been so many rumors about it. A bunch of players across Tier 2 and Overwatch League were like, nudging at the Speedily sign up as well. His birthday is August 26th, so like he's eligible by 5 days. It's actually insane how tight this signing is. But it is also the fact that you can't use this guy until I think the third stage of this year. Like you can't use him until like the Summer Showdown, and I think I looked. It was week 17. Week 17 of the Overwatch League is when he's actually eligible. So it's gonna take a while. So why don't we start on the DPS line of the Atlanta Reign? Predominantly, we'll talk about Speedily. We'll get to Nero, Kai, and Venom as well. But they have 4 DPS now. And originally, this was a team that I didn't think were going to go to 4-4, because 3 is pretty good. 3, if you can cover most of your bases, I think is fine, especially for a team that's going lean. And I would have imagined that Atlanta was originally a pretty lean roster. They're even below the sort of starting 8. That I say starting 8, just mean like the 8 that you would have on your roster if you're trying to cover all the bases. So, for example, 3 DPS, 2 tanks, 1 main, 1 off tank, so you can share the role a little bit, or you can figure out who's going to be the better player based on what's the meta. And then 3 supports, 2 flex, 1 main. Now, Atlanta were actually below that. They were on 7 because they were missed out on the 3rd support. They probably don't need the 3rd support, but they went for 8 players anyway. It just so happens their 8th player is Speedily, which is going to start competing, I think, in some ways against Nero in his role, maybe even a little bit against Venom in his role as well, as far as the Tracer goes. We'll see how much of that gets played. Probably they'll allow Venom to just be still their Tracer main and Tracer specialist, but Speedily is coming into a team that's already pretty full, but also I think is probably one of the most sought after players that were available in Tier 2 that weren't eligible for this year until very recently.
Yeah, agreed. Speedily to me is a move for the long term. So like setting that aside, but not really, because I do think there are like instances where he could come in and actually be predominantly like a starter. It feels like years since I've actually seen him play, if I'm going to be completely honest, on my like acumen on what Speedily's been up to recently. I've heard stirrings about his Echo. I remember his Doomfist being quite good back on, I think it was like XL2 or some random contender team. But when you look at this like DPS trio as a whole, it makes sense, but it's a little piecemeal, if I'm going to be completely honest. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's like a little rigid in some areas. I like Nero Kai as your starting kind of duo lineup. I think Venom has ways in. I think if you can leave Kai and Nero in, I think they have quite a potent DPS duo, if I'm going to be completely honest. I quite like both of them. I think Kai is going to have quite a good time. If all things are, considered true, or if we're all agreeable on, how hit scan may or may not work. And yeah, I quite like Atlanta.
Yeah, I think like once again, it's like an off-season victory for Sefi, who usually has just like stellar off-seasons, right? Like, I don't think this year's off-season is necessarily weaker than last year's, and he got Pelican last year, so
true.
I think like it is nuts that Sugar Free even with that moved update is still not 18. I'm sure you would have loved that as well. But yeah, I'm looking at this roster and I'm not sure if there's really a weakness, and I think we're very prone to appreciating how nutty it is. just because like that's the Atlanta way. But I do look at the starting schedule for this team, and I think getting out of the blocks well is going to be very important for them this season.
I mean, let's not also forget that last season, if hypothetically we're saying that, like, which I know you're not, but I think a lot of people are saying that, oh, when you have Rookie of the Year, like this feels like a downgrade in, I think, the public's mind. And to kind of talk about what you're saying is they have to start strong. They also didn't start strong last year. If you remember their stage 1 last year, it was quite weak. Yeah, it was quite bad, if I'm going to be completely honest. And they bounced back immediately. Well, not immediately, but they grew over the season, right? So I think if they can hold true to that with this roster, which I would imagine a lot of it's kind of the same, maybe they don't need to, per se.
My thing is like this: the composition of like who's on this team and what I expect them. Keep in mind, dude, if you are a team that has like so many rookies, and especially rookies from teams that won basically 95% of the matches they ever participated in.
Agreed.
I'm not saying you can't, and it's possible that you can just like, especially with Speedily on the horizon, you can always say, okay, we just gotta drag ourselves to a playoff position, and then eventually like we get him, and like maybe it's an echo meta and it's over. Like all suffering has paid off. But like I think just like probabilistically, I think this team, if this team gets rolling early, which it might, through like if they beat New York, bro, that is then going to be another crazy season for them. I'm pretty sure. Like if they come out New York Justice in like week 1, week 2, I assume, yeah. At the same time, you can lose to Mayhem, and then it's not a shame to lose against this New York. It's probably, you should probably beat Justice as an Atlanta Reign, but fair enough. If you then go like with low morale into games that you should absolutely be winning every time and don't, or just one don't, boy, like now you have a morale issue internally. Very likely, right? And
true.
Yeah.
My crazy to think this is very similar to the Shy signing and the Leave signing, where you get somebody that's just like not even eligible. You're kind of just bringing them in early. It depends on what contract he's on. Imagine if he's only on, I mean, what even could he be on? If he's on a 1-year contract, when does that start? Does that start now, or does that start when he's actually eligible? Like, I don't even know legally how it works, you know?
No.
Or is he on, like...
He's fine. I think he's getting paint and probably is free to scrim, and, like, will probably get access. I think that's all.
He's already, like, said he'd already be... His contract already officially starts then, essentially, right?
I'm, like,
so
70% sure. Yeah.
So he'd be on, hypothetically, a one or whatever, 1+1 maybe contract. And he only has to play for the Reign for how many months? 2,
like 2,
less than 3.
And
Depends then
on how long their season is, but yeah.
And then we'll see what 2023 looks like. It's a pretty insane. The point I'm trying to get to is it's a pretty insane investment from the Reign. Invest on a player that's probably only going to be eligible for 2 to 3 months.
If I'm going to be completely honest, talking to some of the NA boys from contenders, like that was like top of the list every time was speedily, yeah. And it's like it's an investment, but I feel like it's going to pay off for sure.
It's an investment that would pay off if they're heading into playoffs and this guy just comes out and demolishes, and then Atlanta get another deep playoffs run, maybe come second again or whatever, threaten a really deep playoffs run somewhere off the back of Speedily. Then I'll be like, Seffi, you have done it. Well done. That's a brilliant pickup. I still think it's going to be a good pickup. I think he has the reputation, and he should be a pretty good player. It's just that you're not going to see that until so deep into the season,
for sure.
And then
that's
what happens unless you're investing into it as a future. Because the reason why I bring attention to the Shy and Leave pickup is that they're like franchise players for their respective team. So it's not like, oh, we pick up Shy, he'll play for 1 month, then he'll just fuck off to another team. What's the deal with Speedily? Is he on a 2-year? Does he get to play for 2 to 3 months and then he stays on Atlanta, thereby making the investment, I think, more worthwhile? Or does he just collect a dub, collect a bag for 2 to 3 months, or for the whole year, but only have to play 2 to 3 months, and then just go wherever else after that? Assuming he's got the value to go, because then that's why I'm saying, for me,
agreed,
crazy investment from the Reign to go for a player that's not eligible for solo. Like, he is 5 days off from the cutoff, so you almost literally cannot get a player that is more ineligible while being eligible. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
like unless his birthday was literally August 31st, you could not find another player that is more like at the cutoff date as far as eligibility goes.
Agreed.
The thing is,
I have to assume it's a, an investment for the next season, if anything.
Dude, straight up, if you roll into Countdown Cup and for some reason Echo is meta, I mean, the stars align for you.
Dude,
right now,
he's
the best Echo in Overwatch.
He's not, but also you're putting it all in black, yeah? You're like, I'm putting it all in black 23. Like, I don't know. It's a little bit, if it's an Echo meta, yeah, and then there's still Pelican and Leave and Sparkle, etc.
I don't.
Not to mention, like, you're probably also not practicing. You probably also can't afford to practice with him throughout the season.
That's an interesting thing for this team in general, because they had very good practice partners. I wonder if they've finagled something with like some other team that, like,
Deadbird.
Yes, but are they really the same caliber still? Like,
I think to Joe's point is, okay, maybe you've got great practice partners. How often can you include Speedly in that practice when he's not going to be able to play for you until August 26th?
Yeah, and it's not really like they have a slouch in his stead.
It doesn't it doesn't improve your team to actively give Speedly a lot of scrim time when you can't even use him for matches until way later in the season. So maybe you only start integrating Speedly into scrims properly for stage 3, which is Summer Showdown. And I believe it was, 3 weeks? 3rd week of Summer Showdown is when he's available. So getting between the break of Mid-Season Madness and Summer Showdown is probably when he should be integrated fully. But before that, you got 2 stages where, like, fielding him in scrims is probably a waste of your time.
Yeah. That's why it feels like it's like a long-term, like you said, a shy, a leave situation.
If it's not, it's just a lot of money you're spending for what?
And it doesn't feel like this is a short-term play. Everything to me reads long-term. It feels focused around NA. This is like your NA franchise flex DPS moving forward in this league. And Atlanta feels like they've secured him even past the contract date, right? Like, it feels like Speedily has been kind of synonymous with this core of players, or has just been kind of orbiting them in some ways.
Yeah, well, he's definitely with 2 other A team members at the moment, but
I think, like, what?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not going to get into contract discussion on that too much, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see what the direction is again, because if you are going to sign somebody like this, you surely are not just doing it for a 2 to 3 month stint and then letting them off into the free market, because then you've just, you've done the work for everybody else at pretty high risk to yourself, and you don't even get to retain him for 2023. Bit of a yikes.
I'm sure, like, Brad's probably out here just, like, wishing he still had an academy team so he could just put Sugar Free and Speedily, like, on that lineup and just, like, at best put them in Korea somewhere and just, like, have them
Korea somewhere,
have them go for, like, in preparation for 2023 while also being able to scrim.
Let's we spent a long time in Speedly. Okay, we all acknowledge he's good. I think the main concern for me is, how does he get integrated? What can he effectively do for this team? And what is the goal of having Speedly on your team? Because to me, it is a signing that makes a lot of sense while simultaneously making no sense.
Yes.
Just based on eligibility. Makes a lot. If he could play for the whole year, I'm on board 100%.
Is he then the best AT member?
The best AT member?
It's either him or Ultraviolet, right?
Probably. Not that we're devaluing OG too much, but AT have basically all been signed now outside of WUB. I think he's the only AT member that didn't get signed. And was Iron on AT at any point? I can't remember. But pretty much all of AT, start to finish, including now even Kaluj, are on a team somewhere. So let's wrap up the DPS. We haven't even talked about the other roles yet. Let's wrap up DPS real quick. Nero, Venom, and Kai. So Joe, I think you mentioned you expect Kai and Nero to be your starters. I guess it depends on whether we will find a Tracer meta or not. That will always be the biggest question. A lot of this will come down to new heroes being introduced.
Yeah.
Because as much as Yiska brings up Echo, it's like, well, by the time we get to Summer Showdown, I'm expecting other new heroes that come out that, will be way more important.
Possible.
So maybe Echo, I doubt that Echo will even be a real factor by then. And even then, yeah, I mean, I just think this game will probably be defined by a lot of the new heroes coming through. But they got a pretty balanced DPS line now. It does pain me that 2 out of 4 members are going to be benched at any other time, at any particular time.
Yeah.
And I believe they are now one of 3 teams that have 4 DPSs. Hangzhou, Dallas, Atlanta, the only teams with 3 DPSs. Everyone's gone
Maybe
for
Valiant.
3, which I think is the ideal number.
Possibly
Sure,
Valiant,
maybe
right?
We'll get to them. Though.
Oh yeah, Valiant. You're right, possibly Valiant. So 4 teams out of 20 go for 4 DPS players. I think it's crazy, but
Yeah.
At least I see the value in Speedy because it's kind of standout.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the rest of the DPS? Kai, Nero, Venom, we're all happy with that.
It's about as good as you could have realistically gotten with the. No, I think it's best in slot for whatever Seppi wants to do with his roster, right?
Yeah.
Is there anyone else you could? I think here's the problem. Do you, after this season, do you go to Gator and say, I want Reiner now? I don't think you can do that, dude. I don't think it's justified either. And
Wait, what do you mean? You want to? What do you mean you want Reiner?
When I'm thinking about, is there legitimately upgrades in the league that could fit the mold of a mostly North American roster where you could still upgrade using other Western players from other teams?
I mean, even if you had Reiner, does he play over Hawk? Do you know what I mean? It's just
that's another question for sure.
We can't even think of this as you just swap the main tank for the main tank. We're in a solo tank environment now, whereas any quote unquote tank would be kind of eligible. I don't know,
okay, I forgot.
Kaluj is there as well, even though he does.
Kev is an upgrade, right? Kev's Brad takes Kev that. Kev's that. No, I didn't. Hello?
I don't know if he would. I don't think Laz would ever allow. You're talking. Yeah, I can hear you now. You're talking just the first half of what you said previously got cut out.
Oh, sorry. Kevster. He would take Kevster every time, right? That's the one upgrade that's in the league in my mind. But
if he's available, he would never be available.
No. My point is can you upgrade this team? I don't think you can significantly with the restrictions that Brad has.
Do you just mean with anybody?
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, you just put all the Shanghai Dragons on this team as an upgrade.
No, you can't because that's not the restrictions that Brad is functioning under, right? He has.
So you want an NA team. So are there better NA players? Yeah, probably. I'd probably have Dante over Nero. I'd probably, but I mean, some of these discussions are kind of, I don't even know if they're really fruitful because these players, you wouldn't be able to put them on the team just because of
right.
Their deals with their. I think Ryan is a different discussion because he was a free agent, so he hypothetically could have gone to this team from free agency. But Kevster was never a free agent. Dante wasn't. Was he? No, I don't think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no.
I actually can't remember. But Hydron would have been available, but didn't. How much of AT are you trying to get over? Ends up being the question. Shockwave was available. Aspire was available.
Yeah, I don't think these are upgrades over the people they have.
So apparently Dante was a FA, so maybe he would have been
Dante
available.
Is a good shout, yeah.
So we're talking about actual FAs that they could have gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Then those would be available,
but you're not going Reiner, right? If you're AT after this season, after what your tank line has done for you, you're not even interested in Reiner.
So let's move to the actual tank line now, since we're already talking about it. Gator and Hawk. I don't think Sephi had really any interest in replacing either of them, and I don't think he should. I think they both do great in their respective roles. There's no obviously I don't think there's any point adding a third tank. Looking at you, Boston. But if you're gonna have two, you have a good main tank and a good off tank. See what meta it is. See what hero pools you get to play with, and then see who's more eligible to play during the season based on meta and etc. And that's good. Like this is one of the positions I think they nailed because while they just copy pasted the same two guys over, I don't think their contracts expired or anything. I think they were just still there. And yeah, I mean, as you said, the only other players they could have reliably have looked at are guys like Kaluj and Reiner. Was Space a free agent? Can't remember. Super was technically a free agent. Technically a free agent, but I think Atlanta probably wouldn't be able to compete with Shock's, money there, because Shock have far more motivation to want to keep Super.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot. I mean, False was available, so really you're just like, who on AT can I get for tanks if I want to get there? Apparently Space was FA, but again, you're competing against the Gladiators budget, and I don't know if Atlanta can do that.
Yeah. No, in general, I think this just is a testament, even that they did get that backline, is sort of a testament to, once again, a great offseason. Also, like, I'm not sure what the contract situation with Kai is, but keeping him is big. Nero is definitely...
I'm a little...
Yeah? What are you?
I think you're cutting in and out, Yiska. I'm hearing like a few words didn't make it through there for me. I didn't quite get what you said. Thoughts on the tank line, Joe, before we move on to support?
Yes. I'm interested in what Gator's role is moving forward with this team. I think I don't speak out of school in saying that he had a standard hero pool when it came to the heroes that he could play for main tank, right? I think his Rein and Orisa were amongst the world class. I really can't point to too many people that would better him on those roles. And now that one of them has had a significant rework and there's one less tank, I'm interested to see what they do with him moving forward. Does he adapt to the new Orisa well? Is there really going to be much in the way of Rein play? Do they try to force it? He's kind of my North Star, if anything, maybe next to Speedily, of like, okay, what's up with AT? Because they haven't necessarily had to play without him in the starting lineup. So if they have to, what does that look like?
Well, it looks like Hawk, I guess.
True, but do they perform without him not, with Gator not being there? They've always kind of pointed towards him as being, this incredibly vocal presence, and he's kind of does, helps out with the coaching and whatnot. So
it would really depend on meta, I think. I think depending on what the meta dictates in terms of what tanks are good, that'll probably be determining who gets playtime and who doesn't. And then, of course, any new tank that comes out, who's got to be your Malga specialist, in theory. if that's going to be an actual tank, whatever comes out, it's like, what is that hero? What role does he fit? Who's better at that hero? And I think both could compete for new heroes as well, because we've known Gator to pick up off tanks like Sigma when they first come out. So
true. Yeah, that's fair.
It's probably positive that you have two players that can compete for a starting position on new tanks as well. It's probably a good thing for the Reign. So I'm pretty pleased with that side of things. Let's talk about OG and Ultraviolet. Probably the best NA-based support duo you could have hoped for. That was probably Sephi's biggest win in the offseason. 100%.
Definitely.
OG Ultraviolet. That was probably quite a well sought after duo. Likely that Mayhem would have gone after them as well. But Reign snatched them up first. And I think individually you'd say they were good. You might not be insane about it. Insanely pleased. Well, you'd be pleased, but you wouldn't be over the moon about it just yet. But the real value to me is that they come in together because they're so good together as a duo. Like, I'm hearing stories about them being in trials, and if they're on the same team together in trials, they are just dominating, and the other team's just like can't keep up support wise. with OG and Ultraviolet being together at the same time.
I will echo the exact same things I have heard. Verbatim, the same thing. So apart, they're good. Together, it wasn't close. It was a support line diff. It wasn't close. Nobody competed. No duo competed. It was just OG Ultraviolet. To your point, though, when it came to contract negotiations, I spoke to Sephi, and he, again, to quote him, the negotiations were not as easy as they had a higher offer from a very well-respected team. That's his words, not mine. Like, this was a sought-after backline. Full stop.
100%.
How good are they in the international context?
Well, they're worse than EJ Gon and Izayaki, but
sure.
But aside from that, it's really hard to say, man. It's really hard to say.
I feel like they're like you after this season, you probably got to say Shu, Scoot, Funny Astro is probably more solid, right? Finn Violet, we don't know yet.
I think Shu Skewed is a really, we'll talk about Gladiators during their preview in more detail, but that's a very special support line bolstered by Funny Astro. That's pretty nutty.
Yeah.
And the Gladiators had one of the better support lines. So yeah, I guess the question is, do they even have? Would anyone say they have the best back line in NA even? When you have Chia or Fielder could be nuts. I think Fielder is still
Twilight Sharong.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a crazy good duo as well. The problem with some of these is they're not known quantities as a duo together. They're just really good individually that we know. Where Shu Skewed is on the table as like players that have played a season together and are known to be good together. Like Chia is good. Haven't seen him with Fielder, but individually they're both dynamite. Same with Chorong Twilight. Chorong Twilight might be one of the legitimate best backlines we have,
bro. Like,
that have the firepower to compete.
Oh my god!
That backline has the power to compete with like the very best. I mean, I could see them going toe to toe with Izayaki Lee Jae-gon in some respects. Even though Chorong's a rookie, like I've called this guy the next Lee Jae-gon multiple times during Tier 2 and during his Contenders career run. I mean, Finn on his own is insane. Violet is also good, except he will probably be playing main support, which is a bit funny. So Atlanta Reign would definitely have one of the top support lines on paper. I think the duo aspect adds a lot. I think it's like a greater than some of their parts kind of deal. But even then, the individual pieces are already pretty damn good. So when you have a greater than the sum of their parts combined with a really good individuality, that speaks a lot to what they can bring to the table.
Yes. And to kind of better define with like both a question and kind of like prescribing or assuming what you mean. Like when you say better than some other parts, you're talking kind of about just like you're dealing with mostly single language roster. You're dealing with Sephi's system. It's kind of loose. It works. So they've worked together. What
I mean when I say that is that they make each other even better. Like their value together is made even higher because they're together.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So instead of just being like a Chorong Twilight where they're both individually good, but we haven't seen them together, so we don't know how they work. I think that's why I said earlier, if anyone got either one of OG Ultraviolet as an individual piece, you'd be happy with it. But getting them together is almost like a set bonus from Diablo. It's a 2-piece set bonus. You also get like the little green text. You're like, oh, a little bit of an extra buff there. I didn't realize. So, yeah, that's what I mean. Greater than some of their parts. And usually that term is used to describe something not great that becomes great together. But I'm using this to describe something that's already pretty damn good, and then together they're even strong, which is really great value. So, everyone happy with that? I think that's one of the better support lines you could hope for. Definitely top in NA, for sure. One of the top in NA. Depending on how I think the only other duos that really compete are like the Chio Fielder, Chorong Twilight, Shu Skewed, etc. Right? Myeongbong, Gundam Jin could be good, but because they're double flex, it's hard to say what that's going to look like. So I don't want to get too deep into that. Same with Lasher Iris. It's like double flex. We'll see. Okay, so that's the entire team. As we wrap up this preview, we need to finish out with like just overall thoughts on the roster and how good you think they are. Let's stick it into NA for now. I don't want to get too deep into the rabbit hole trying to compare them to APAC as well. When I mean, it gets a bit arbitrary. So just even within NA, how would you rank this team? Top half, bottom half? Would you want to give a range, like somewhere between, second to fifth? Like what? Like where do you see this team hypothetically right now on paper, and how happy are you with the roster overall?
I think they feel like a very swingy team, and I feel like I've said that a lot about Atlanta in the past. But I feel pretty strongly about it this time around as well. Weirdly enough, I don't know. Maybe that just speaks to Seffi's system, or the players he looks after. I think this is a potential NA leader, or could start kind of slow like they did last year and kind of grow into themselves. I'm looking anywhere from like 1 to 6. And I think that if you ask me at the end of the season, you're like, oh, Atlanta led NA the entire season, I'm like, that makes sense. And in a different universe, you tell me that they were 6 all season, I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like I can see both scenarios kind of working out, or anywhere in between, really.
Yep. So when you say 1 to 6, you are making space for the potential for them to actually be first place and NA, as in the best NA team.
Yes.
I think the highest probability for them is probably like peak 3rd, 4th is where like they're most likely ending up, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Feels pretty top heavy once again. And then there's even some stuff where you're thinking like how good could Houston be and whatnot, but specifically towards Reign, I agree with Joe. I think first would surprise me. Just because they're so rookie heavy. And they're not that rookie heavy, but like 50-50, right? But it's also hard to measure stuff up. I think a lot of the power they had last year came at the hand of Pelican, but also of the tank line. And the entire style was dictated by that. This is now going to change significantly, of course, with Overwatch 2. I'm kind of interested how they solve the leadership thing, while Hawk is probably the more skilled player between the two. But if they can sufficiently answer these questions, yeah, then they're probably like definitely can spike higher. I think 3 or 4th is most likely.
I am not going to be brave enough to put them anywhere 1 for now. I think they could go as high as 2 if everything aligns, but I just can't see them. The thing is, once you get to the upper echelon of NA, you are definitely competing with the Dallas Fuels and the LA Gladiators. And we can talk about like, oh, Gladiators, they choke, blah, blah, blah. But if we're talking about roster quality, I mean, Glad's roster quality is unreal. So strong. Dallas as well. Upgrades from last year. I mentioned on a previous podcast episode, I think Han Bin for me is someone I expect to be an MVP caliber player this year. He should be an MVP candidate if he holds up his reputation from last year and brings that into a 5v5 solo tank environment. I mean, assuming he gets the playtime, assuming he starts, Dallas have, an MVP level player on their team. And that's alongside Fearless. So, I mean, it's just crazy stuff going on there. So it's really hard for me to put them anywhere higher than 2nd. Even maybe 2nd is like quite optimistic. Or maybe 3rd is more realistic. Maybe I think what Yiska said, 3rd, 4th is pretty good. They're definitely in my top 5. I don't think I have Atlanta below 5.
Yeah.
Absolutely would not have them below 6. So they're top half NA for sure. They should be battling for, seeding for tournaments, etc. Yeah. I mean, what's the cutoff for the tournament again for NA? It's top 8, right? I mean, they're easily top 8.
Yes,
without question.
Anything lower than that would be a jump failure.
If you're out of top 8, I mean, if they can't be out of top 8, the roster would be hard shitting the bed somehow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I know there's a lot of Atlanta haters out there like who want to put them like 12th place or something. Just I don't know. People like to dislike Atlanta. They're the team that people love to hate, and people will, I think, inaccurately place them in terms of power based on like biases of just not liking the team. Like, so decouple your dislike of the team with like an objective view of how good they actually are. Like those two things are allowed to be separate here. Yeah. So I think they'd be comfortably 2 to 5 in my opinion. So I think that's what I said. You know, I even my example was like, where did you put them? 2 to 5. That's actually my actual position, 2 to 5. So that's probably where I look at for NA. So that wraps it up. Atlanta Reign preview. Talked a bunch about Speedly, the new pickup. Talked about the players across the board, how good we think they are. I think we're all pretty confident this is going to be a good team. So looking forward to how they will do. Came second place in the Overwatch League last year. Heading into a new game now. Bunch of great players. Picked up 3 members from American Tornado. This is Team America plus Venom and Kai. I mean, what could go wrong? We'll find out. Tune into the air. Thank you so much for this for the preview. We're going to head on to the next one now. Okay, and for our episode listeners, we're going to be moving on to another team now, just as soon as I bring up their background. Here we go. Done.
Nice.
Welcome to the 2022 previews for the Overwatch League. We're on to the Boston Uprising now, where, my God, they have a lot of players. 9 players.
Yeah.
3 in each position. And probably overall maybe an upgrade from last season. They retained only 2. 3. Valentine, Punk, and Faith. So 3 players. Probably you'd say 3 of their better players, if not their best players, and kind of rebuilt everything around it. Boston, to me, look like a team that are interested in turning around their previous season, which I think they'd be pretty upset by in various cases, where they had a reasonable team on paper, but then they ended up being the first team, and I think the only team to lose to last year's Vancouver Titans. So kind of ruined Bread Bowl a little bit there. I still haven't forgiven Boston for that. But here they are, retooled and upgraded, and I still think, you know, not that we're doing to rank them just yet, but it's feeling like a middle-of-the-pack team, again, with some good potential. Why don't we start on the DPS line again? Striker, Valentine, Victoria, gentlemen. So Valentine returns, now backed up by Striker, who was last seen retired, but before that, the San Francisco Shock, and then and then other than that, we have Victoria from Uprising Academy as a hard hit scan player who replaces I'm 37. So, thoughts on this trio?
In one hand, I'm excited to see Striker come back. I think not to completely go on a tangent, but I do think Tracer is going to have an important role in Overwatch forever, end, period, full stop, right? The majority of time spent playing this game, you'll probably be seeing Tracer, even if there are some windows that you don't see it. Ergo, Striker should be a fantastic pickup. Victoria, I think, as much as we applauded IM37's growth last year, from all the things that, you know, expectations are put around him, should be quite good. I think Valentine has a lot more to prove, and I don't think we saw a good season out of him. I think he can rise up to those expectations. AVRL, I think you can speak to that as well. I think it's a good DPS lineup in a vacuum. I'm more concerned about some outside things, personally.
Outside things?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm looking at the team as a whole, and I'm like, I see a very clear road that you could go down.
Are you talking about other positions? We're not talking about them yet, but just trying to get an idea of like what you mean.
No, not positional. It's purely logistics and how like the game script of rosters that kind of look like this possibly can go.
Okay, you're being very vague, Joe. I feel like I need to press a little bit further.
So, okay.
I don't even understand. When you're subtweeting like this, I don't even get what you're talking about.
So let me just explain myself, right? I look at this team and I think, dang, look at all these great players. Individually, they're sick. Crimso's good. Punk's good. They had a great season last year. I liked what Crimso did on Dallas. I can't even remember where he was last year. I'm going to be completely honest. Yeah, he was good, though. I liked Punk last year for Boston. He was quite a standout player and helped them. Yes, he was. That other Texas team, whatever. You hate me. That said, I see them starting with them integrated, but by the end of the season, I worry about their place on this team. And I think that internally, I'm concerned. I'm concerned if they start with them and they end up underperforming and they get pushed out to try to consolidate into a single, language roster. That also has its growing pains. That's going to keep them middle of the pack. It doesn't feel like a clear direction to me.
That bad is I mean, okay, hypothetically, if Punk and Crimzo get benched, is that bad in your opinion?
In a vacuum, no, but logistically, that means you spent time practicing with Crimzo and Punk preseason. Okay, that's fine. We come in, we lose. That sucks. We keep losing. That sucks even more. Okay, what do? We try to integrate into like lowest common denominator. Let's try to fix what's going on. Maybe it's a comms thing. Okay, we go fully Korean. Now we've spent all that time practicing, and in some ways it's kind of a waste. In some ways it's not. And you have to shift gears. That's never been something that I've been very agreeable to.
What if
they kind of feel like they're treading water a little bit?
What if they're just winning? Their first 3 games are Vancouver, and then London, and then Washington. 3 winnable games.
Very winnable.
Wait, no, it's Glad.
What? I don't know.
And Toronto. Glads. Wait.
Isn't it?
Oh, sorry, there is Glads. Sorry, my bad. There's also Glads in there as well.
Yep.
So some winnable, some less winnable. So my bad. So it's Vancouver, Glads into, I believe it's London.
Yes. Toronto.
And
Justice.
Toronto, Washington. So kind of like a 50-50 start in their first 6 games. It could go 3-3. I don't know. I feel like you're going down a road of like some major hypotheticals here.
Well, 100. Like I'm waving my hand, screaming. This is a hypothetical scenario. They could just go on winning, and this could never be an issue for the season ever, right? But just to stem some expectations, if things go a little poorly, I think we're back to Boston, treading water, middle of the pack. They're gonna be fine. They're gonna be fun to watch. They might even do some weird stuff. I'm interested to see more of Laurie's coaching style. It felt like he was on the cusp of doing some very interesting things with Valentine, but we'll see.
I just don't know if what you're saying is really like a applicable thing for Boston when internal issues with losing can and will happen to every single team that is losing.
Agreed.
And that just ends up being, to me, not a Boston specific thing. Yeah, we know Boston have had some internal things in the past, but I think a lot of teams have had internal issues in the past.
Agreed. And that's exactly where I'm branching this kind of speculation from. When you look at a team and you kind of have to prepare to lose in a weird way, right? When you look at this team and you try to integrate in Western players into a fully Korean mix, there could be issues, much in the same way we could have said there's going to be issues with Shock last year, much we could have said about the Spark, right? A lot of these teams are trying to integrate into a mixed roster, and they have to commit to that. If they commit and they just see it through the entire way, that's fantastic. I don't trust these teams to do that, if I'm going to be completely honest. This isn't a Boston thing. This is just we've seen this game script before. It doesn't work this way.
We've seen plenty of teams run mixed rosters. This is not a new thing at all. This is not a new phenomenon. And even
That's
Boston
fair.
ran a mixed roster last year. And we can say, okay, well, did it work out well? But then there were teams that did work out well for mixed roster. So it's just too hard and weird to go down that road, because I don't see, unless we want to go down the road of like, Striker and Huck have a charity boxing match, or maybe less charitable than that. I don't see any immediate reason why I would think this roster doesn't work out. That couldn't just apply to anybody. So again, it's focusing on just the DPS lining, Striker, Valentine, Victoria. Yiska, any thoughts on that?
I think that's a really reasonable DPS line. Probably not competing for the best, but it's like an A+ level DPS line. I think like Striker, of course, stands out. Hopefully he has some more left in the tank. I think Valentine is a really good DPS player. I think Victoria is probably underrated, and generally speaking. I think you kind of have to compare it against everyone else, and there, I don't know. We're kind of in this luxury position where there's very few teams that just have very clearly bad DPS lines. But I'm not sure. It said, let me go down the list. Okay, so of course Dallas is better. At this point, I'm not sure if Glides is better.
You sound like you're lagging out to me a little bit.
Really? Oh, god damn it.
Just a little bit. I don't know if anyone else got that or if it's just me. Joe's nodding his head.
Yeah, this is annoying. And then, I mean, Kai, Atlanta is probably better. Shock is probably better. Yeah, okay. I guess they're average in NA.
It's about average then. It's about average.
Yeah.
You're really hoping for, I think, when you're talking about this line, you're really hoping for a Tracer meta to develop.
Right.
And yeah, Joe's right. Tracer's been meta for a long time, but you know, who knows? We get to Overwatch 2. Tracer has 100 HP now and only 2 blinks and nothing else.
Yeah, that's on the table.
Like, you know, all the crybabies on Battle.net forums like, nerf Tracer, and then they do, and then she's dead.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks.
You think they're putting Roadhog as the Overwatch League logo?
Hey, who knows?
Not even Roadhog, just his belly. Just you look at his belly where like a team logo would be, and it's just the Overwatch logo on his belly, and that's the cover art. That's the box art right there. That's what they put on the shelf. We know Striker plays a few other heroes, obviously, but there's going to be a little bit of overlap with Victoria because his other heroes are predominantly hit scan and not a huge pool. Victoria, I've seen a little bit of footage, and what I hear about people is he was probably one of the biggest players on Uprising Academy. In fact, he was like a huge carry for them, doing absolutely crazy stuff. I've heard about, you know, players going up against Victoria and just being like, holy crap, this guy's doing a lot. So for all intents and purposes, he might have been a driving force on that Uprising Academy team. And from what I saw, like, yeah, I mean, again, I hadn't watched I don't think I've watched enough to make any, you know, super conclusive comments about Uprising Academy or Victoria, but I just know that he was a top performer on that team and a top performer in NA contenders. And I believe he was actually physically in NA. There were a couple players that weren't on the Uprising Academy team. He may have been one of the players that were in NA. I got to say, I mean, Boston are kind of killing it as far as tier 2 support goes. They're like the only Academy team still in North America, at least. Not talking about Asia here, but in North America, they're the only Academy team operating. And going as far as actually shipping their players to NA to play from NA for Academy is pretty insane. So they get to kind of reap the rewards of that, see how that goes. Victoria could be a gem. I think he's a hidden player that not a lot of people are talking about enough. And he could be a player that really steps up. The problem is he goes up against, you know, a bunch of other really hyped rookies and also up against a lot of returning players on HitScan that are just really good. So I'll temper my expectations for Victoria right now. I think this is what Yiska said was about right. Probably a middle of the pack, both team and DPS line.
Yeah.
Very dependent on whether they can unlock Striker's best parts. Valentine probably has more to show than what he had last year, but will depend if we get to a position where that can happen or not. Tank line, 3 players. Oh boy.
Which
now we had talked a little bit about what we thought this Itzel signing could have been. And I was specifically speculating that maybe Boston were selling off a player. Now, that hasn't happened yet. It might not actually happen at all. Maybe they legitimately just have 3 tanks for whatever reason. Marvel, Itzel, Punk. And 2 of those are main tank players. Marvel's kind of like a 50-50 kind of player. Punk is definitely an off-tank player. So there's 2 ways to look at this. One is that how does this 3-tank dynamic work? Is it just 2 players permanently benched and 1 player gets all the play time? Are they going to try and share play time between 3 of them, 2 of them, 1 of them is benched? Who knows? And the other dynamic is, even with 3 tanks on the roster, it's still a 5v5 game. So we can almost kind of mentally block out 2 players and just think about 1 player and how that would work in 5v5. So they could still hypothetically do super well. Even if I think it's a mistake to have 3 tank players, results-wise, they could still be winning because, you know, as long as 1 of their 3 tanks is performing well, they can get results. So have to kind of decouple that a little bit. Have to kind of decouple my dislike of having a huge tank line with the fact that it could potentially still work.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the rationale there is. I'm also honestly not sure about Itzel as a player. That's just like a question mark for me. I'm not saying he's like not good. I'm saying I don't know. But Yeah, it's a weird situation there. I think generally speaking, Punk is kind of nice with it. Who would you expect to be starting here?
Would agree. Punk. Will he? Don't know.
It's very meta dependent. Like again, like I mean, you have to really consider what hero is meta at any given time. Yeah, I mean, I would say that Punk is like kind of one of the franchise players, one of the returning members, and I don't think Itzel would be starting, but I don't. Then again, I just don't know why they signed him. Then as a backup option, is he just permanently a backup option? Is he trade bait? But that doesn't make sense either because he could have just been signed from Uprising Academy anyway for trading. I could see either Marvel or Punk starting. I just don't know about Itzel. I don't know if I see him starting, but he's there for something. He's there for some reason. I think their tank line will be reasonable. It's just the problem is you're going up against. I think the Gator Hawk line is better. Fearless Harbin obviously better. I think even on a 1-to-1 basis, despite Houston only have one tank, you probably think Piggy's a better individual depending on the meta. I mean, Houston might get screwed if it's a heavy main tank meta. Like I mean, shit. Maybe Kaluja's even better. Kellen's probably better. Space Reiner could be better for sure. Space definitely going to be better. Mag, I still see a lot coming out of it. Mag Kalios had a reasonable season last year. Sure. Mag is still a good player. I think he didn't perform up to his full potential, but just knowing where that potential is, I mean, that could still be unlocked. So it ends up to me being a kind of another middle of the pack kind of tank line as well.
Yeah, I would tend to agree for the most part. I think coming into this season, I think we'd all probably agree that we expected teams to be a little bit tighter with their roster size, and seeing this. I think this is the first time that I'm a little concerned when I see bigger rosters. I'm gonna be honest. I look at Spark, I look at Boston, maybe even Titans in a weird way, because I have positive things to say about them, but I don't know about their depth. I don't know how this gets used, and that's less of like a woe of the team and more of like, we don't know what this game is. So why are we investing so heavily into it just yet? Why don't we
backup options? It looks like just a shitload of backup options.
I mean, I appreciate that, but that's a lot. I don't know. I feel like I'm flip flopping on that, but I do feel strongly about it at this point that I'm like, I don't know how deep I want to go right now. Maybe mid-season? I don't know. Don't know how I feel about that. But tank wise, yeah, I think they've covered all their bases. They seem good enough. Who starts beats the shit out of me. I would say Punk.
So let's go towards the support line now. Faith, Crimson, MC. I think this is one of the more strikingly positive parts of the team. Faith returning is really strong. I think he was one of the better players, well regarded by Boston internally as well. Crimzo had a really good season on Houston. That Crimzo interview that you did, that one, did you, Joe? I think.
No, I think that was sub for GG Recon.
Yeah. So, so GG Recon did. So you didn't do it, Yiska? It was someone else, and Seb from GG Recon. Okay, got it. Yes, that's a really good interview to look at, by the way, for anyone interested. Crimzo says some good stuff, really interesting things, and some of the things that some of the parts that kind of struck me were talking about how much he believed in the Boston system. Didn't take long for him to sign either. He signed pretty quickly to Boston. He was exploring his offers. Felt like he landed where he wanted to go and didn't feel the need to shop around for too much. So he took the offer and went with it. So, I mean, he feels pretty strongly about joining this team. And he actually mentioned as well, when in initial discussions with Boston, like, who are they keeping? What's their vision for the team? Got told they were keeping Valentine, Punk, Faith. Crimzo was like, yep, I think those are the best players as well to keep. So it just feels like Crimzo really aligned with what Boston want to do for this year, which is cool. And then Boston rounded up with another flex support on MCD. Controversy aside, individually as a player, mechanically, he was quite good for the Spark. I think he was one of the better parts for the Spark last year that was really holding his own. I think there was various points in Spark's campaign where I said there were 3 players really holding their own and putting the Spark in contention to win games when otherwise they looked like they were maybe shitting the bed. And those 3 players were Shy, Gushui, and MCD. And when those 3 players were on the same page and doing what they needed to, they were kind of carrying the other 3 guys in their team. Shy is obviously Shy, but then you have the MCD, Anna plus Gushui, Winston during various stages where they were playing, I think, double bubble or just Winston-based comps, which is obviously going to be Gushui's strong point. Those were really good moments for the Spark, and MCD was part of that. So again, controversy aside, I think individually he has a lot to bring. And I mean, fuck it. This is apparently the year of controversial signings. So, you know, every team's just looked at each other, shook hands on it, and be like, fuck it. Anyone can play. Fuck it. Maybe he'll redeem himself. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not here to talk about controversy, but as a player, I think he's still got something to show here. So, reasonable player.
Yeah, I like all these players in a vacuum. The meme, haha, I pick Faith for the whatever the hell draft it was, but there are like reasons for that, right? Like you hear stirrings that statistically he's performing very well. He's extremely good in scrims. He's a good player to have around in the team. You look at Crimzo. Since Envision Esports, this kid has been synonymous with, relative success within NA. And I would echo the same sentiments with MCD in APAC. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I want to like it. And that's it.
This is probably the part of the team that I think I like the most. Yeah, I don't want to undervalue the other parts too much, but like I think if there's one area that they actually really compete with on other teams, it is definitely the support line. Yeah. Yiska, did you already speak on the support line? I can't remember.
I feel like it's really solid. I think once again, like we said already last year, and Joe also implicitly with his pick this year, that Faith is a main support you should be valuing. They value him highly. I think Crimzo definitely has been the best flex support from the Western side for probably 2 seasons now. I think if they have to double flex support, MCD is reasonable. Yeah, I don't know. This is just a good one. It pretty much feels like their DPS line feels. It's just generally a very balanced team. It's not if anything, you could maybe think that Striker, a peaking Striker is probably the shining thing that we know about. I'm not sure if there's other things there, but everything else here is just perfectly balanced in the power levels I would expect from them.
So power level now, let's actually get into that as we wrap up Boston Uprising. Where do you see this team right now among the NA crowd? What's your kind of range for a team like this?
Mid. That's a mid.
Yeah, mid, but bottom half or top half? Because out of 13 teams, so if we say that number 7 exactly the median there? Why is my math bad? Yeah, number 7. So are they above number 7 or below number 7? Or are they just number 7?
They are number 7.
I would say 7 too. I think this is your league average team.
Just flat in the middle. Yeah. Don't say you wouldn't. I don't think league average would be accurate because we haven't included APAC yet. And
no,
so once you shove in the APAC teams, they go from 7 to 15th or something. No, I'm joking, but
agreed.
You shove right down and we're adding
NA average. That's the NA benchmark is going to be Boston.
Okay, so NA benchmark is low then. Gotcha. No, but seriously, 7. Okay, let me just say. I only have a think about this. Do I put them above? Because for them to be 7th, I'd have to put them above 6 other teams. Would I put them above 6 other teams? Let me have a good think about this. Just doing a bit of counting in my head. I was looking for teams to put below Boston, and for some reason my eyes went to Boston. I could put this team. Oh, that is the same team. My bad. No, I wouldn't even. I don't know that I'd have them 7th. I think I'd put them. My range would be closer to 7 to 9.
Okay.
If not 7 to 10. Let me think about that for a second. 7 to 10 means it's 13, 12, and 11. So they have to be above 3 for sure. I think they can be above 3 for sure. Can it be above 4? I think they can be above 4. 13, 12, 11, 10. So, no, yeah, 7 to 9 would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Can I put them above 7? Probably not. I think I have a stable top six in my mind, and I don't think they could breach 7. This is why I think the 7 is even not like there for me.
Maybe, yeah.
I think I'd be more comfortable doing it at 8 or 9. That's why I'll do 7 as like I'll do the very top I see them doing on paper is probably like a 6 at the very most, and that would require them to upset somebody. Like they'd have to take down like a Toronto, Shock, New York, or Houston level team. If they can do that, they can breach 6. Once you get to 5, it's gonna be you can't really do that because now we're talking about top 5 for me is very solid in terms of having like rain and stuff up there. So Boston would have to be really punching above their weight to get anywhere 6 or even attempting to go above that. You would have to have teams like Rain shitting the bed.
Yep.
And then Boston would have to at the same time simultaneously be playing out of their minds. You'd have to have a perfect Tracer meta. Striker goes full nutty mode. And only teams with Tracers can keep up. And teams that don't are just sad. So I think reliably, I'll stick to my 7 to 9. I'll just say that. I'll just say 7, 9.
Yeah,
cool.
No, I don't hate that.
Would agree.
It is definitely harder to place them once you actually go down the list. Like, I could see them beating out a team like Defiant. I could see them beating out Justice. I can see them be better than Outlaws. Can I see them be better than anyone else? I actually thought it was quite spicy that you had Shock this low, and in the conversation with the rest of those teams. I don't think that's that for me. I think there's no chance they are going to be better than Shock.
I don't think I'm not saying Shock is 6th place. I'm not saying Shock is 6th place. I'm just saying like if Shock were to go down, if they were low, they'd be something closer to 6th. So I think upper level Shock. Say again?
Are they not that tier level of team? Like with
I'm getting your audio so late.
Are they not in the same tier for you as like Outlaws, Justice, Defiant? Because you mentioned those as like
type it out to me, Yiska. Boston. Who? Boston or Shock? It's like I'm talking to you from the International Space Station. Like it's a bit of a delay, you know, like have to wait to see you. Is Shock in the same tier as Houston Justice? Above. I've Shock slightly above those teams. I don't know if I can comfortably put teams in tiers just yet. It's just like maybe I can. I don't know. I'm not saying like Boston should ever be in striking distance of Shock. But really depends on how they manage. This is not meant to be a Shock discussion. Go watch the Shock episode if you want to hear the longer discussion. It depends on how Kaluj and Violet turn out for me. Again. So Violet on the main support, obviously. So that aside, yeah, Boston and Shock shouldn't really be on the same level at all at any point. I think that's about it. I think we're pretty happy to move on then. We can go on to the next team. Thank you for hanging out for the Boston Uprising team preview. We're going to be continuing on with NA coverage now as I swap over my background. Who did we say was next? Okay. Just grabbing it. Here we go. Alrighty. Welcome to 2022 team previews. Next up for North America is going to be the Florida Mayhem. Flowrider Mayhem. A team that is entirely different from their previous iteration, minus one returning player in Checkmate. Brand new coaching staff. Brand new direction for the team. It is a almost full sale franchise rebrand in the sense of like who the players are and the team is, not so much the actual brand stuff, but like a reset button on this team. So Checkmate gets to come back in as properly a DPS player, not someone just covering for OG. They add Hydron from AT. Mirror comes over from Glads. Someone, Animo, Majed. Adam's been kind of on his way to the league for a while, but was denied when Valiant had their whole thing going on. And Animo rounding out as the veteran player on this team as well. A player that I think was quite surprising for a lot of people. Majed, someone they felt like was going to be one of the better Western pickups available from the flex support. In some ways, Florida Mayhem does look a lot like Atlanta Reign from a goal perspective for the team in terms of trying to build a Western roster. Now, they couldn't collect all the best Western pieces that they wanted. Obviously, I think they were definitely going to be going for players like OG Ultraviolet, for example, but just can't secure everybody.
True.
They might have gone for, maybe they went for Reiner and he decided to go for Glads. Understandable. I don't know. They probably went for a large number of the AT players and they only got Hydron. That's still pretty good. And then they just kind of built up a more of a mixed roster around it. Probably describe this as a bit of a Moneyball team. When you get Gumba on board and he's your head coach, he deploys the Gumba vision. And a person that is super well known for his scouting ability, for finding high value players that are overlooked by other teams. So literally a Moneyball kind of approach to roster building. And he's been super successful with this approach in pretty much every single roster that he's been a part of the roster building process. So across all of Immortal Valorant, this is the guy that discovered and gave a shot to Asuna, as well as a number of really high profile or just like good Valorant players. He got some really good results off of team rosters that were probably a fraction of what big rosters in Valorant cost, you know, when you look at the Sentinels and the Envies and stuff like that. So he comes over now, brings his roster building expertise, grabs longtime, you know, associate in McGravy, where McGravy's been out of pro play for a while, but has had a lot of interest in coaching. They've obviously worked together. He's actually been on Florida before, funny enough, way in the past. Knows Gumba's system well, and they bring in Day One as well from Team CC, which is also where someone comes from, tank player. So yeah, this is a whole new look for the Florida Mayhem, hoping to do a lot with a roster that is probably quite a bit cheaper than a lot of other rosters, which would give them a huge amount of value, but is definitely a very different look to how they were last year. Start with Hydron, Checkmate, Mirror before we talk about the whole roster.
I quite like this DPS trio. I value Mirror's role as kind of the funny hero specialist, as somebody who can kind of off-roll if need be, for God knows whatever reason, quite highly. Stepping into a new game, I think that is at premium as it stands. I agree with AVRL. I don't think we really saw Checkmate's potential, and if we're resetting our internal clocks and saying, okay, if this is his rookie season, I would probably expect some decent things. And Hydron was highly spoken about amongst, like, next to or above Aspire. Like, if you thought Aspire had a good season last year, well, Hydron is maybe not even the next best thing, but, you know, I guess kind of in the same way, the next best thing. But maybe even improving on that kind of benchmark. I quite like it. I think it's probably their strongest, like, out of the three. I would say their DPS is probably the strongest line, personally.
For out of the other positions on the team, you mean?
Yes.
Yiska?
I feel like the thing is, the problem really this team has is that everyone is now super stacked in that position as well. Like, as we've just realized comparing like Boston. Yeah, I think like there's probably reason to believe that Checkmate was underrated. I'm not too sure about Hydron. I think Mirror, as you outlined, is like a really serviceable player that has like a couple of ace picks. At the same time, I'm like, does this hold up against the rest of the league? Like, is the quality high enough even to compete? Like, if I'm stacking these guys up against Boston, I'm not sure I'm getting out ahead. I think that's probably a DPS line slightly weaker on paper. So yeah, it's hard to say. Definitely in a comparison of the.
If it's a Tracer meta, for sure. I mean, strikers should be running circles around these guys. But outside of that, I mean, it's hard. Maybe it's hard to say. But, I mean, that even being said, I mean, Hydron's Tracers. I mean, how even it is against Strikers Tracer, that would be a bit rough. This is a very stable DPS line in terms of covering all your bases. You got everything you need. You know, hit scan player, you have flex projectile player, and then Mirror, who comes in as probably, I think, the league's best quote unquote third DPS in terms. He's got such a unique hero pool that is a bit of a double-edged sword in terms of his own playing time. Like,
true,
he's not someone you want to run comfortably in most metas, but in very specific metas where his heroes are good, you are running this guy for sure. He's like a specialist.
Yes.
He specializes in being a specialist, almost, as weird as that sounds. So I see Mirror doing more for Mayhem than I see for guys like Who Are You on Dragons, for example.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the only way. Well, actually, I'll be straight about that. I think a better third DPS would probably be someone like Stalker, but then you're just, that. I mean, at that point, we're talking about like players that are just insane.
Yeah.
Not to say Mirror's not insane. I mean, he's a good player, but at that point, you're like, well, I might as well just have proper be your third DPS. I mean, fuck it. So it's a little bit unfair of a comparison. But we actually, something I brought up even last year when they announced Mirror, I was like, this is a pretty smart pickup for Mayhem, because not only does Mirror just cover really fringe picks on your DPS line, but he covers some tanks as well. So he can like really, really hardcore multi-flex into a bunch of different positions, including off-rolling, which is really high value. So I think Mirror is a super high value pickup, especially for a team like Mayhem, but for a lot of teams that wanted a Western player that has the capability of flexing a lot of different places. Because imagine you are an Outlaws type team and you only have Piggy, or maybe Vancouver, who only has False. Someone like Mirror has a lot of value on that team when you only have one tank. Or hypothetically, if Mirror was Korean and he joined the Newark Excelsior, that third DPS makes a lot of sense because he's got some heroes that would actually complement someone like Kellen, right? So his team has already got 2 tanks, but if he joined a team with only 1 tank, I mean, that would be one of the highest value DPSs possible that you could absolutely get. So, Checkmate, hella underrated. Most fans just don't even know about his DPS capabilities. They just think he's funny Ryan tank man who replaced OG for a little bit when OG went on his mental vacation. And they just have no idea how good Checkmate is as a DPS player, which is maybe not their fault, but at the same time means that you get some weird takes in the community where they just hella underrate him. I've seen what Checkmate can do in DPS. He was on a very successful punch above their weight kind of team in Contenders Korea. And clearly one of the better players. Well, I actually expected him to come in last year and play a lot, but when you play with Yaki on your team, you're probably going to get benched with Yaki. It's understandable.
I mean, we didn't really get to see a good showing from him. I would expect some big things. I'd probably expect him to start. I think it's pretty safe to say that Checkmate, Hydron are going to be like the starters, with Mirror echoing what you said. Possibly doing some role swapping and being a little bit fluid. So yeah, DPS line's good. I like it.
Yes, are you happy? You good?
Yeah, all fine on the DPS line.
Okay, cool. Let's go towards the tank. Someone and Adam. So this is a really interesting tank line. Double rookies. A lot of maybe question marks in terms of unknown quantity on this kind of line. Adam played briefly for Uprising Academy on Dark Mode as well. And Ground Zero in Australia, which, most people probably wouldn't have seen his gameplay from there. I'll just put it bluntly, he absolutely dominated, as he should. And then you have someone who played in Team CC, and I think previous to that he was on Gen G as well. I remember casting him on Gen G, yeah. So he's a very young player in Gen G. And actually, he's not even 18. He doesn't turn 18 until April 24th. So he's about to be 18, but just in time for the season. And previously, had we already started the season, which, I mean, if we were a normal esport, we damn well should have started the season already. He would have not been eligible, but he is eligible now because we start so late. And he was part of the CC squad for a full year last year, 2 seasons. First season, reasonable. Second season, not great. Not very good at all. And I think that soured my opinion on someone a little bit, just because CC as a combined unit wasn't super good in season 2 of last year. CC really fell off hard. So it's like, this is the same thing that kind of sours my opinion of Aim God a little bit. So CC in general doesn't, when you have a rookie coming from that team as opposed to other teams like O2 Blast, which is the obvious one, and then maybe even like a Talon, O2 Blast, you feel great if they come from there. Any other team is starting to be like, maybe less. So I know that the players regard him well. I know that people that have played against him and with him regard him as a pretty good player. And I think now, maybe in a different system, he can flourish. Because I'll also say CC had, ever since No Hill got removed from that team or whatever that process was, CC kind of slid down. So maybe he needs to be on a team where he can be guided and have a coaching staff that will push him to his potential. And then he could be a real diamond in the rough kind of player. I mean, this entire team, I think, is kind of like that. This is the real, legitimate punch above your weight type of team.
Yes.
Because you don't expect them to be on the same weight class as anybody else. They come in as the featherweight in a league with a lot of heavyweights, and they're gonna have to go for some nut shots or something.
I mean, let's be honest. By all rights, this team should be in the Spitfire, in the Vancouver, in the Paris tier. But they're probably the most likely to have a breakout season out of all of those mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Have the highest ceiling. They have the highest potential to break out of that tier and upset.
Mm-hmm. And this goes past. I know we're talking about coaches, but I think the system that Gunba brings also attributes to that, or helps to catalyze that punch above your weight kind of mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, I defer all assumptions around Adam to AVRL. I would trust and agree and echo a lot of those things there. The one thing that I will say about somebody who I would also well regard, spoke to me about his play in particular and had 2 things to say. His leadership was quite good, and his English was actually phenomenal. So comparing that to, having a pedigree to be able to be signed to Gen G and Team CC, the mechanics, that's already an obvious. It was a surprising name to be voted so highly when coming from NA or just contenders in general. So definitely somebody else to be on the lookout for.
I mean, this could be one of, when we talk about overlooked players, this could be literal definition. Because I don't know if any other team would have been interested in him at all. Mm-hmm. He would have been one of the most overlooked players if he actually pans out right. And by the way, how funny was it that the way you structured that sentence of talk about him is somebody said something somewhere about someone. Right. I don't know. It's all just vague.
Feel bad for anybody having to cast the Florida Mayhem.
And it won't be me. Thank you very much. Thank God. Listen, I already had to deal with. I dealt with that shit for 2 years in contenders already. Please no. Somebody else can have that pain. Just call him S1. I don't know. I have no idea. He needs to change that name. It is gross. The team, by the way, they call him by his real name, which, get ready for this. His real name is Ham. Ham. Ham.
Nice.
He's a main tank player called Ham. I hope he goes Ham.
Possibly.
Bro, your main tank is Ham. I was like, yeah, he is. Really? Legitimately is.
Ironically, Checkmate's nickname last season was Ham.
Was he?
No, but he played like that.
Oh, right. But he played like that. Okay. I get it now. Yeah, good stuff. So, I don't know. Strangely, I'm probably the first person to talk to about Adam. I don't have a lot to add about Adam because what can I say? Yeah, he dominated Australia like he should. Cool. Sure. Like he was individually the most impressive player in Australia, but that's just a given,
Right.
you know. Like,
Yeah.
it's just that's just stating the obvious. So really, but then you talk about what he did in NA, but then he was on high ping, and it's like this and that. That's just, and then he was playing Uprising Academy, but then they went full Korean, so unlucky, gets cut because he's not Korean. What do you do? He's playing dark mode, but dark mode's like an alright team. He does have a connection to McGravy through dark mode because McGravy was coaching dark mode.
True.
There's a connection there. I think this is one of those. Cause let's really think about it. Were there other tier 2 off tanks they could have gotten that are just clearly better that they should have gotten that would have potentially been in their price range? I mean, Kaluj was available, but I think some teams, maybe Florida, wanted to dodge that bullet a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, I think I was going to say maybe Kaluj is too expensive, but I think Kaluj would just take any deal because like his likelihood of getting on the team pre-shock was just like zilch. So I'm sure he would have taken a 50 grand deal if he.
It feels like a false move, maybe.
False,
like in that tier of player. Like I feel like it probably has to be Western or a Korean player that has a visa and has experience, like on a mixed roster.
I feel like Florida want to go as Western as possible, though.
Yes, agree.
I think they reluctantly went three Korean when they probably didn't really. When they let's just listening to what Albert was saying early on about the direction Florida was going to go in. Sound like it was going to be either a full Western or a predominantly Western team. Probably like a. That's why I said that they look like a mini Rain in that regard, in the sense of like the direction of the team. But Rain is like, we're going to go full Western plus Venom, and Florida's like, I guess we're doing 50-50. I don't know. I can't. It's a shame that I can't say more about Adam because I just haven't. There's not more I can add other than he dominated Australia, got a bit unlucky in NA. I don't know.
What happened to Gaboshi, by the way?
Sent to the Shadow Realm? I don't know.
It just doesn't fit like the. And again, like this is some big attributions like we're prescribing to this team. But again, if we read between the lines, it does feel like they want to go fully Western. The only like odd player that they've signed, not to completely jump ahead, is Onimo. Someone, again, you kind of have to trust me on this, like apparently has quite good English and like is a good leadership figure. Like that feels like a nuanced take, right? You had Checkmate from last year. Okay, we hand wave that away. The only weird, like non-Western player, big quotations on that, audio listeners, is Onimo. If you go more outside of that, that's where it just doesn't feel like Gaboshi would really fit. It feels like we're sticking in NA. We're sticking Western at the very least.
Going back to Gaboshi a little bit, it does feel like he got, just reading between the lines as well, like the interest in Gaboshi went from like reasonably high to now like 0 for some reason. So I don't know. That's why I'm like, did he get sent to the Shadow Realm? Like, what's going on? Is he battling Pegasus in there? What's going on? I don't know. He's just gone. And it's just like teams. He played for Boston for a little bit, then Boston are like, no, actually, Punk's better. Actually was better, and after that, just never saw him again. GBS, Mr. Penis Fish, just simply gone. So, I don't know. I don't know on that one. And to Joe's point as well, I don't know that they would have gone for a Korean off tank. Although, to be really honest, if you want to moneyball a team properly, the best way to moneyball a team is actually just to load up with a bunch of fresh Korean rookies that other people have overlooked. That's a winning strategy for moneyballing a team if you want to go that direction. So
it's a question like where you feel like your abilities are if you're the head coach in Gunba. And to be fair, if you look back, can't really deny the success he's had with the Valiant specifically, right? Which was like a split squad, to be fair. Yeah. But then again, there's probably also something that the organization has a say in, and like, I'm not sure what their declared goal is. I think, generally speaking, Albert is also someone that generally tends Western in his selection, in recent years at least. So yeah, I'm not sure. But it's certainly interesting. I mean,
all I know is like, Valiant's one thing, and I don't know how many listeners are any sort of followers within Valorant as well. But I mean, so many good players have actually come through Immortals and used, and for better or worse, used Immortals as a bit of a stepping stone to eventually get on other better rosters.
Yeah.
You know, the big names are like Asuna and Jonah P. I think with some other players, like you'd say the Natures and Rossies and stuff like that. The point is that there is a proven track record of him. Shot Up is a great one. It's a proven record for people that don't follow Valorant. These are just all random names. You don't even know who they are. Just trust that these are good players in Valorant that came through the Immortals system as predominantly probably a bit budget to start with, but I mean they moneyballed the fuck out of Valorant and had good results doing that, or at least were competitive. They were competitive with teams that had like 5 times their budget. You know what I'm saying? So that's from a value financial standpoint, that's crazy. So if Gummer can repeat that success on Florida, that'd be wild. Let's talk about the supports. You already mentioned this about Animo, but you think he's a bit of a weird pickup. I don't really know much about Majed. He played on Bobby Wasabi, Falcons, Raspberry Racers. Another blind spot for me. I just haven't seen the teams that he's played on personally. Again, just haven't, not my particular regions and not great time zones, etc. All my regular excuses for that. Animo, someone I'm probably one of the more familiar, personalities that know Animo because I've actually seen him. I've actually pretty much seen his entire career from front to back because I casted him back when he was way pre Overwatch League, playing on Ardiant with Aim God and DM and Erster. Interestingly enough, against Gumba, so they were all in the Pacific region in Taiwan together, all living in Taiwan, and Gumba's team got smacked the shit out of by Animo's team back then, and now he's his coach. That team, by the way, that Animo was on in the Pacific region, that was Moon's team. Moon was coaching that team. So there's a lot of pedigree that goes back to that moment. Anyway, so Animo is, I mean, I always regard him as a good player, but he gets such a really bad rap. And I think the whole Seoul falling apart last season was part of that. I mean, New York as well started falling apart. I don't know if he's just like a cursed player that always ends up on these type of teams. I never felt like he was personally holding the team back. I know he's not an exciting player to watch, and maybe people have been just too highly stimulated by the funny Astros and the FD gods and the Moths of the world, and they're like, oh my god, Frogman boop everybody 5K. Yeah. Like if you're not a Frogman getting 6K boops, then what are you really? Is I think a position some people hold. Whereas I think you're allowed to just be a maybe above league average player who does their job unceremoniously, doesn't take a lot of credit, and that's maybe an okay thing as a main support. And I think you do have to kind of look at the POV again, because a player that I would describe as a very similar in terms of feeling, where he's pretty invisible when you watch live, but you kind of have to go back and really look at the POVs to get a feel for it. But someone like Masa, where he's probably one of the more underrated areas of 2021 Reign, because everything he did was pretty invisible. You never really got to see his impact that much. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't need to be a super flashy main support. And I think Animo gets a lot of flack for not being a super flashy main support, but he's clearly someone valued by the Mayhem because they wanted someone that was a veteran player with leadership qualities, and that could sort of bring the team together. Now, I look across the board and I think, what else could they have done? Could they have gotten another main support player? Obviously, I think Florida would have wanted OG Ultraviolet first off. If they could get OG Ultraviolet, they probably don't have Animo Majed. So we'll say that much. They can't get OG Ultraviolet. Okay, they have Animo Majed. I actually thought it was going to be maybe Majed Luke Mino as a duo. I legitimately, when they teased their second support player, I was like, oh, it's got to be Luke Mino, right?
Yes.
But it wasn't. It was Animo, which was super surprising. But I'm only surprised. I'm not surprised in the sense that of play quality. I'm surprised in that I didn't think that he would be a priority pick for this type of team that was predominantly Western, but now is a mixed roster.
Yep. Would agree. I think to Majed, because I think I have less to say about him. Looking at the Ultraviolet comparison, I think he is like comparable, but like maybe a not like a tier below, but like a step below. Like it's kind of close. They were competitive, even in their region. I have also heard this, a similar kind of measuring from the analysts and experts from that region. So would tend to agree. Good player, probably is going to be another one of those like punch above your weights. You're not expecting him to be good, but he's actually going to be pretty serviceable and probably above average. And then there's Animo. I don't disagree with anything with what you're saying. I think that's fine to be like a veteran vocal presence. But then we start to hear that supports are getting a little wonky. Getting a little abused, let's say. Hopefully that changes. I'd like to see that changed, but if it doesn't, I'm a little concerned with Animo. I'm a little. I don't think to talk on Masa, the Masa comparison. I think Masa was flashy in subtle ways, whereas Animo has just always been like fine, and I think that's fine just to be like the benchmark. But it does, if I'm going to be completely honest, it does feel like a liability for this roster. And I don't know why, but like, has Florida ever had a good main support? Can somebody please correct me? Because my brain is just like running blanks.
Slime
how high did you
good.
rate
True. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
But even then, I think most people would be like, oh, Slime was like kind of average, wasn't.
Yeah. It just feels like a role that like, in a weird way, there are certain teams that just have roles that they like always excel at, and then they just don't have. Like
Zebasai. There you go. That's the answer.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's nuts. And it's never been as bad as I think we tend to paint it. But with all the comments around support coming into Overwatch 2 in the beta, and again, it could change. I'm concerned for Animo. I'll say that.
I mean, Masa would just clearly be an upgrade, right? I'm not alone
Agreed.
in
Yes,
this.
I'm with AVRL. I've been a big Masa stan supporter since really fine tooth combing his play. Agreed.
I'm really curious about what happened in the offseason there. Is it that they weren't targeting Masa, or was Vancouver offering something better? Who knows?
Good question. Yeah, that's a great question.
That's a really interesting dynamic of what happened behind the scenes, because if you're looking to build a good Western roster, I mean, fuck it. If you're going to be mini Atlanta Reign, you might as well start taking their players. Start with Masa. Start there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Part of me does feel like Animo wasn't their priority, and the reason I say that is because I'm almost certain OG would have been their priority if they could have gone to first.
For sure.
That's why I know Animo wasn't the first person. Like your Florida, your Gumba, or your Albert in the offseason. You're like, get Animo now. He's on number one draft pick. No, he just simply wasn't. I just don't think he was.
Yeah.
No. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a team not named the Los Angeles Valiant that would have been like, get Animo on the horn. Like who is topping the support like short lists. I just don't see.
Who knows?
I don't see that. I'd gamble on a rookie before I take Animo. And again, I think he's had a fine career. I think he's fine. I think he's like just the benchmark. I think he's okay. I think he can play. I just don't think he's very good.
Let's call a spade here. This is one of the worst support lines in the league, right?
I mean, I got
people are down because people are down on Animo, and Majed is probably a bit more unknown. And Majed is not the he's not the standard for a flex support coming out of the West, because Ultraviolet is the standard. And so if you don't get Ultraviolet, everybody else is worse.
Right. I mean, it is pretty hard to just look at any of the backlines and say they are clearly worse. Like,
yeah, you're not wrong.
Where do you put Provide Admiral?
I'm fine, like, even giving you that those could maybe be worse. I'm not sure. But that's pretty much it.
I mean, how do you feel about... This is a reach, so you have to excuse me. Irish Lastro.
Yeah, I do. I was looking at the same thing. I'm like, maybe.
I mean, it's a problem that
flex,
yes, yeah. At the same time,
and then who plays main support?
Bro, yeah,
I mean,
right. But what happens if this meta once hits flex support? You're now like basically
you're in a good position.
Playing like battleships with Animo, where it's like B7 for my aim. Like,
True.
Come on.
I'll take
Like,
that. I'll take a mirror.
Mirror's gonna play your Anna. Don't you worry about that.
I'll take that.
Don't
I'll
worry
take
your
that.
pretty
Run
little
with it.
face. Mirror's gonna. He's now like an Omega Sigma Flex, where at Hyperflex would just play everything in their own role. An Omega Sigma Flex plays every role.
Mm-hmm. he's what he's what everybody thinks hydration is. Right? Like Mirror genuinely can play everything at a pretty high level. And like we've seen that in the past. Whereas hydration is like played Winston in contenders and like was okay.
Yeah.
I like hydration.
Also,
I've seen him for a long time. He's not Mirror.
Yeah.
What you just said about the Florida backline, you could say about their entire roster though. Hypothetically.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, you're not
In
wrong.
some ways.
Yeah.
So let's compare
Yeah.
it. Let's put it to the test.
But
We got to wrap this up. So we're going to do the rankings now. We'll do the rankings. We're going to do where would you put this team? Like, where's your confidence level for this team in terms of a range and NA?
Bottom 4.
Oh.
So you think their range is 13 to 9 or 9-13?
Probably 8,
Oh, that's
13
5.
if I'm being.
That's 6 then.
Yeah.
That's 6. That's bottom 6.
Yeah.
Okay. 8 to 13. Right?
That's a wide range. I'm pussyfooting around this. It's like.
Yeah, you are, you bitch.
It's.
Yes. I think for me, they're somewhere between 1 and 13. Somewhere between 1 and 13.
Okay, then let's hear it then. Where are they? Give me the exact map score, or I'm not satisfied.
I mean, we save that for power rankings. We will get there, I'm sure. I like Florida, and some of it comes from like some bullshit like tea leaf reading that I think Gunba's gonna be a ruthless business manager and just like make crazy signings. I like them around Boston. Wherever you put Boston, I like them either slightly below or slightly above them. I
don't
like
hate
Florida.
Sorry, slightly below, So
if I think Boston is 7th, I think Florida could either be 6th or 8th.
Bro, I
think
I
they're
would
competitive
need
in the middle.
I would need some flaming hot scrimbucks in order to believe this. Like
flaming hot scrim.
I think Adam has a lot to prove. I like someone at main tank. I agree. Animo is not who I want as main support. But I like Hydron quite a lot. I've heard a lot of good things. I've heard a lot of good things from Checkmate. I quite like Mirror's like just role as a Sigma Flex fucking Alpha Chad Omega baller.
Omega
I
Flex.
like this fucking team. I like it a lot. I think it has a lot of potential to, like we've all been saying, like everybody's been saying, Plat Chat, God knows who. This team punches above their weight far past anybody else. I don't care if you're Paris. I don't care if you're London, as much as I think I like London, but a little concern there. I think Florida has a lot to prove, and I think they're going to be the upset team of the year for sure.
So not convinced.
Their roster quality is probably bottom 5 for me on paper.
Yeah.
So that is what 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Between 9 and 13 is roster quality. But I'm crazy enough to buy a ticket to this Gumba train.
That's what I'm talking
that's
about.
the Aussie talk. Here we go.
And say that I've seen the evidence, man. Like it's hard. It is hard to go up against the evidence. I'm not saying it'll work every time. It's not infallible, but fuck me. If he didn't already have a track record, I'd be like, it's bullshit. But because he's got a track record, I'm like, I think my man's onto something. So 9-13 conservatively, but they could maybe reach as high as.
He's reaching deep into his bullshit pocket. You seen this, Joe? Look at this man. This
It's
is
not
a man,
bullshit, though. I agree with
This
it.
is a man that tries to come up with some bullshit.
No, this isn't coming up.
I think Joe convinced me as high as 6th.
Yes, I think this
Joe
team can be
convinced me.
very good.
Joe convinced me. Joe convinced me.
Okay. Right.
Oh,
If you don't like their roster on
no.
paper, I have got a train whistle and some fucking tickets to sell you to the Gunba fucking emporium of misfit players.
I don't disagree, but this man is also like not David Copperfield. Like, he's not going to make this team levitate.
But you know who is? You look at this team's track record. You look at putting Albert in like the GM position. Like they're willing to do what they need to. Explore all offers on the table to perform within their means. And I think that showcases through the roster. Like, hey, sometimes there's things out of your control that just happen and you have to put a DPS on mandate. Sometimes that has to happen. However, am I wrong in remembering that last season they started pretty all right last season, yeah?
Yeah, the first stage was the best stage.
Yeah.
They made the tournament.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So like that argument goes out the window. I'm glad that you at least wave the flag at you being.
I actually think they start strong again early. I think the best stage for Mayhem is literally the kickoff clash. They start super strong, and then maybe they don't make playoffs. Is probably what's going to happen. But
that's okay.
I think they can early, because here's the other thing is I know that Mayhem have been scrimming longer than any team pretty much. Well, can't be any team because they have to play against somebody.
Sure, yeah.
At minimum, there's another team that's been scrimming.
We're playing against bots, baby. Let's go.
But they're one of the teams that have been scrimming the longest. I know they got a head start on their team because of that.
I like that too. You're just adding fuel to the fire, Avril. Let's put them 5th. Are you crazy to put them 5th?
No, because no, I think 6 is crazy enough for me. I think that's the limit for craziness for me.
I've out of body experiences with you guys. Like, what is going on?
I said 9 to 13. I said 9 to 13.
Yeah.
Conservatively.
And then you said up to 5th.
No, that's on his crazy pills.
Joe said that.
Hey, I didn't say that. I was just trying to get you to go there.
Okay, so no one said 5th. We're agreed on that then. No one said 5th.
No, I'm saying 6 to 8. I'm saying anywhere from 6 to 8.
Bro,
right, so 1 to 13
Joe has 8 teams in 6 to 8. Like,
yeah, I've got a window, baby.
Team, the entire North American
team
was between 6 and 8. All right, so Florida. So I think we end and conclude that Florida is a probably on paper not great team, but also a keep your eye on this space.
Yes,
because who knows what could happen? Who knows what kind of magic Gumba pulls out of his Houdini hat?
You already know I'm like basically like caressing this man's achievements mid-season point because I'm in love with people doing a lot with just very little resources. So don't fret if you're a Florida fan. This Yiska is going to come around eventually, but like right now you have to realistically look at this roster, the limitations it has, and just like I'm also setting the baseline low so they can then overperform and everyone still like. It would be it would just be like if they actually get top 5 and everyone's like, well, you guys all predicted top 5 for them. How is that exciting? Like, no, dude. Like they have bottom budget. They're like restricted in what they can do. In terms of they probably couldn't have gone full Korean just based on their organization and whatnot. They were beaten on a couple of trades, of course. Like it's a very competitive market in NA. Like this is going to be like incredible if they make playoffs, honestly.
All right, well, final thing I'll say is hang in there, Florida fans. I know it's rough to be a Florida fan right now when even your own senator, Marco Rubio, is back in the Gladiators instead, but that's going to be a team preview for the Florida Mayhem. Now I'm going to move on to our next team as I change my background. As you'll have to see what team we went with.
New team.
It is this team. Welcome to our 2022 previews. Still in the North American region. This time we're looking at the London Spitfire. Londonius spitting of the fires. Season 1 champions. Okay, the team is really different from that. It has been for a while. London have brought back some pieces from last year. So they are obviously on a rebuilding phase. Looking at what were good last year, what can they build upon? Shaq Sparker, undoubtedly some of the stronger pieces from last year. Hardy, who was pretty good last year, And with that, they're going to bring a backbone, add more Poco to round out the rest of the team. Poco was actually quite an exciting signing. We'll get to the tank line in just a bit. One of the more exciting signings I actually didn't have that I have a lot of faith in that I really, really like is not even one of the players. It's the head coach, Christopher, who everyone on this panel knows reasonably well from the Philadelphia Fusion. So London Spitfire, I think with Christopher's backing, the fact that they're all moving to North America, things get exciting. I mean, this is a potentially exciting team for London fans because it's been a rough, how many years now? 2 years for London fans where it's just been a lot of sadness. I would even say that season 2 London was starting to go downhill already. So pretty much since season 1, it's not been great for London when you go from championship team to, bro, we're going to get a win this season, to now, I think, definitely in a positive move from there. So, all right, we'll figure out. Eric says it's not coming home. We'll figure out if it's coming home or in what capacity. I don't know if it's coming home, but we can at least start walking towards home and just see how far we get.
True.
And what do we even get to our street in the right suburb? Who knows? Sparker Shack's backbone. Let's start there. 2 returning players, 1 new player. What do we got?
Oh, I want to like this lineup so bad. I so want to like it.
Like I was looking at your camera and it's like Joe's face was I will have to hurt people I like, but I'm also trying to maintain some credibility with me here.
Yes.
So I'm feeling the same way, but come on, man. Like, okay,
so
here. You want to hop some hopium? Yeah, I'm offering some hopium.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Hardy on loping.
Poco's gonna play anyways.
Spark on loping. Finally a team house.
Yeah, it's
Christopher. And there it ends, my dude. That's it. They're already like, don't have a team house, bro. Like that shit is delayed. Like they're definitely like one of the teams that spends the least. They are like coming off a bad season where the adjustments really haven't been like, I mean, it's considerable, but like, is it like, are we side grading a little bit here and there, And it's like, I'm not sure, man. Like, it's also not that they're getting off a great start, like with proper practice and they can like really outsprint. They're already like in the trenches trying to dig themselves out of it. It feels like from the outside. So I don't know, man.
So you're putting them 13th after praising certain parts of them.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd go that low. But to stay within the realm of the DPS, because I do think this is the most valuable. I've said this in the past. This is the most important. It has been, and it only will continue to fold in on itself. I don't know anything about Backbone. I've asked people, and I'm going to be honest, they have not said incredibly glowing things, like fine, good, lower on lists. I don't trust him. I trust Christopher. I trust his coaching staff. I don't know if I can trust him to be within Okay.
If you trust Christopher, would you not then trust him by default?
In some aspects, yes. But I have. It's not that I've heard negative things. It's just like he's fine. It's okay. And I don't think that's going to be good enough to compete at the very least, like the middle of the pack. And this is a role when you look at Sparker and Shax, they kind of overlap in some ways. If you can get Sparker and Shax to play as your starting 2, you're fucking golden. Both of those boys are fantastic. I think Shax is criminally underrated, and I think Sparker is probably adequately rated to use
Joe,
that term.
Joe,
I don't know about Backbone.
Come on, man. Check Sparker even at the best of times is not inspirational, bro. Look at everyone else's DPS.
Oh, I'm not even trying to reach in like the top 5. I'm looking at like Boston. I'm looking at like Titans, that kind of feel. I don't know that this DPS lineup, which is the line that I'm weighing the highest out of the 3, I don't know if that can compete there.
Is the problem who has the worst DPS line? Say it right now.
I gotta look. AVRL, go. I gotta look.
I was gonna say, like, even comparing them to Paris, it's like,
Yeah, I like Paris a lot.
I kind of like Glistanaga more.
Yes. They
kinda
fill
like them
both
more.
roles. Just period. Like, yes, you have flexibility on London, but like, who knows? You might not even need that. Like, Naga's great. I think another criminally underrated player that had a fantastic season last season. I think Glister has a lot to prove. I don't think Shock treated him all that great. Bro, it's a stretch.
You're gonna have to compare with Florida because I think Aspire Shockwave's better. I don't know Psycho, but I know Aspire Shockwave. I think that's a higher rated line for me. Unless those two can't play projectile rank. So Psycho would have to
Shockwave can.
Shockwave can, yeah.
Can he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, he like look at it like treat
he
yourself
Echo.
to his Echo stats. It's actually nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
For how bad Titans
Does
were.
he do but does he do the other projgenji like Genji?
That I can't comment on. I'm assuming as much.
I think he can.
Junkrat.
I think he can. Genji. Not sure about Farah.
So he's got mostly hit scan plus a little bit of like he's got the Hanzo Echo there. Hanzo's basically hit scan now. Yeah, I like Aspire Shockwave, but they are lacking the majority of the projectiles a bit there. Aside from, I think you can only really compare London to Florida because every other DPS line is just kind of better.
In ways,
like they really are. That includes.
And that just leads to the discussion. Yes, agreed. Like that leads your discussion. If your DPS lineup is already like, I don't care how good Poco is. I quite like Provide and Admiral. I have a lot of glowing things to say about them. Everything considered, everything that we know thus far, that doesn't matter.
Are we saying bottom 2 DPS line then?
Yeah, basically. Probably. Sad to say.
It's hard because you have like
maybe globally.
We don't even know what Valiant looks like yet, bro. We
got 3 out of 4
globally.
I think that's enough. I think we got 3 out of 4. I don't care who their 4th player is at that point.
I think that's.
I mean, their fourth player, their 4th DPS could be Silver fucking 3 for all I care. It doesn't matter. Sure. He ain't playing. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
I would.
Holy shit. Maybe. I mean, Dia Smacks.
Dia Smacks. Agreed.
Innovation is reasonable. Becky could be okay. I don't know.
I think
you look at Charge as well. It's like you got Overwatch League champion develop. Choi fucking slaps. So
Eileen slaps. Like they slap. Like London, it comes down to backbone. If backbone can show up and can compete with the middle of the table, a lot of these questions go away for me at the very least. I can only speak from my opinion. I like their tanks. I like their supports. I look at this DPS lineup and it is like the most fine in a vacuum. And you look at them in a vacuum, you like what you see, you widen it out to the scope of the league, you're like, oh boy, I hope they got the shit in pants.
Yes, there's a lot of pain this season. I guess there's one thing which we could say is like, what do you think about Defiant considering the Aldo situation?
Sure, yeah.
I think that's temporary.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how temporary? You know?
I don't know. What didn't they give like an estimate of like the late summer or early summer? Like June-ish?
That's fine. That's fine. Finale Hisu's
should be all right.
Yeah.
Plenty.
Okay.
I no issues with the Hisu finale. That's fine with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't hate it. I'm just like legitimately trying to cut pieces out of myself in order to come up with DPS lines that I fairly, despite like liking this team, could put below them, and it's really hard.
I'll give you this. Here's a line that London can kind of like hopium, sniff, smoke, boof. I don't know what you need to do. If there's a flex tank, if we start on a flex tank meta and this team starts off well, if Backbone's like a secure middle of the pack like flex DPS, and Poco can like diff people on the soul tank role, which she possibly could depending on the hero that we decide is meta, London could be good. I don't see them like being good longevity wise.
Let's break down the rest of the roster before we get into overall roster. You mentioned Poco already, so we might as well get into the tanks now.
I'm not sure about
Poco Hardy. Hardy was reasonable last year. Probably doesn't help that he was on high ping.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's legitimately just like a game-changing situation for any main tank. I'm pretty sure.
He's
agreed.
Probably one of the most accomplished tier 2 players.
Right.
Prior to coming into London. I mean, those British Hurricane guys just kind of slapped, didn't they? So kind of hard to poke holes there.
Yep.
Poker didn't play last year, though. I mean, that's raises some questions. Although, you know, he got screwed over from travel, visa, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Poker, you kind of have to talk about him from a historical context of like, not 2021, but 2020.
Yeah.
Which he was good.
Yep. I think he's like a good flex tank. Like above average, I'd say. Is the year off? Like, obviously he was probably still playing. I don't know if he was scrimming, to be completely honest. I don't know.
Who do they beat? I mean, what do you guys think about this tank line? And then, you know, who does this tank line beat? Let's get started.
This is tough, man. This is tough.
Post the question to Joe because I love how he's suffering.
Some of these teams only have one tank. I mean,
true.
Yeah,
they don't beat Atlanta.
I think they beat Vancouver.
Yeah, I can agree.
Because it's false alone. Yeah. I suppose.
They don't beat Justice.
No.
I mean, I've been a big hot hater, but I actually quite like Muse, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think they maybe could be at best the competitive with Toronto, and I'm looking at their tank line in specific. Shock, TBD, Paris, maybe. Definitely not New York. Definitely not Glads. Outlaws, maybe. I think that's a TBD though as well. No. I don't think it's just going to be Piggy. It's definitely not Fuel. Like, there's not too many.
No, it's not.
There's not too many boys. It's not coming home.
Just talk about Mayhem.
I think they could be competitive. I like Adam. Like, I think there's a lot there. I like someone. I think Hadi, like, while I think the ping was rough for him, and while I think that, you know, harping on like a season where he could like physically couldn't play for Poco is unfair. I'll give you like a competitive Mayhem like tank lineup. Like they could battle each other and be all right. Like, but that already like starts to feel pretty gross. It just doesn't.
So they're not like it. They're definitely not top half.
No,
they're definitely bottom half.
Yeah, for sure.
The problem is, I think you'd have to start. You can almost look at the entire team and be like, everybody would be probably bottom half. Already didn't get off to a great discussion on the DPS.
Yeah.
Tank is only marginally better. Did Yiska talk about the tanks yet?
I mean,
he's pointing and laughing at me.
It's no, like it's false, and then I think everyone else like just more like Kolush. I think does. Probably more solid with Coach 9K backup. Fair enough. Christopher also being a tank coach, of course, or tank player previously.
Yeah.
It's not like the situation is just like set up well. No, like
problem is even against Kaluge, like you can look at it in vacuum, but then you have to consider like then he's got Finn and proper on his team. It's you know,
you can diff in other places.
Even if Poco was better than Kaluge. Proper and Finn are just gonna have a walk in the park, aren't they? So.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're not gaining ground with this tank line on the rest of the league, I think.
I mean, am I crazy? I think Dan and Vistola are even better.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, at the least competitive, right? At the very least, you can probably put them in the same tier. Anywhere else, like their ceilings
even
are
if
just
they're
higher.
even they're next to each other, even if it's like I don't know 12 and 11, that's still one just one above.
Just one
above.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It sucks.
It's hard. I'm trying to find. Like I think they're good, but the problem is like in a vacuum. You look at the London roster in a vacuum, like oh yeah, it's pretty good. But then you have to compare it to everybody else. You're like fuck.
Yep.
Oh shit.
There are probably worlds where like they're competitive in the season, like they're battling. Let's say we start in the kickoff clash, right? And they're trading, and they have like an even, you know, end of stage. I just don't see how this team does well over the course of the season. Period. I think they're gonna have moments where they look, oh shit, is this where London turns it around? And no. And that's not any fault of their own. That's not any fault of the players or the coaches.
I got a more like macro question after this that I want to bring to the table, but after we cover the supports, because it has to do with the whole team. the first one to cover the sports, provide Admiral. Now, Joe, you were feeling much better about. I think this was your favorite part of the team.
Yes.
And Joe,
I would say this is my favorite line.
I'm gonna tell you now. In order to get your 6 to 8 bullshit off, you gotta really fillet the spec line now.
It's not. It can't be 6 to 8. It just can't. I think Prophet and Admiral do quite well against the likes of the Mayhem, just comparatively, right? I think they can compete with the Titans. I think they can compete easily with Paris. Well, I shouldn't say easily. I quite like Khan and Drijo. I think Houston they probably could compete with because we don't really know what their main support situation is going to be.
Sure.
Yeah, I think they can be like competitive in like the bracket that you already want to put them in, but like physically can't, looking at every name compared to everybody else. Like this is like the glowing source of hope in an already like dreary support Overwatch 2 like prologue to a book, right? Like when you come into a book, you're like, oh shit, like this is gonna be sick. Fuck, supports are bad and like they're getting abused and like we have the support line that's I hope that gets buffs. Like you want them to be able to make plays. You want them to be able to like be the spearhead of the team to solve any problems that Backbone has, or to like cover Poco as he tries to be, maybe he's the playmaker. This is the best lineup period that this team has. What else is there really to say? And that's already saying nothing because they're like mid.
No, they aren't. No, they aren't. They aren't mid. Say what they are. Say what they are.
I think they're mid. I genuinely think they're in the middle.
Of what? Contenders.
NA. No, I believe that I've talked to people by Admiral. They seem very high on him. I've seen Provide play. I was quite impressed. I do think that this, in a vacuum, if it was just to support the league, right? I think this team, this duo is mid. However, they have to backpack, a whole, London roster, and that takes them down.
I'm gonna make him. I'm gonna make him do it, Avril. He's got to at least now say like 6 worst spec lines.
You want me to give you 6? All right, hold on. Let me see what I can give you. I think they're better than the Mayhem. I 100%
sure. One.
I think they are better than the Houston Outlaws. I believe that wholeheartedly.
I am stretching, yeah.
I think they can be competitive with the Titans. I think they can be competitive with Paris.
Okay, we're stretching.
The New York Excelsior have 2 flex supports.
Why is that bad?
That's 5 at least. It's not that it's bad, but if you're agreeable to Houston having Iris and Lastra,
right,
we're both good flex supports.
Yeah.
But I don't trust either of them to be able to play something like as mechanically difficult. And it sounds weirdly saying this. Like, I don't know what Lucio looks like. I'm guessing he's probably amongst the same character as we know him to be.
My man,
I don't like putting a flex support in a weird.
It's because like Gordon Ramsay putting the 2 breads behind you right now. It's like, say what you are. Say what you are.
He's trying.
Listen, I'm not saying London's gonna be good. I'm not saying London's good. I'm not saying. I'm just arguing for the support line. I think they're mid.
Yeah.
London as a team, not mid.
Right.
Simple as.
I'm still only counting 5, but right.
Sure, I'll give you 5. I couldn't give you 6. I can give you 5.
And I think 3 of those are stretcherinos. But okay.
Some of them.
Let's see.
Some of them are.
Let's see.
An idiot sandwich, huh? Okay.
Someone clip this and just like fast forward us to November this year, and let's see how that held up.
Ah, man. I don't know what to think either.
It's tough.
When you're now, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, yeah, I think the DPS tanks and supports in Paris are better, just overall.
Yeah,
they're just all better. Like, my God, it's like the closest team, the closest rivalry, closest team in terms of like maybe even skill. And Paris just have potentially a better player in all positions, potentially. And that's even me saying like, oh, maybe I prefer Vistola over Poco, and that sounds crazy enough as it is. You know, but Dritra and Khan, they did some good shit.
Good.
I mean, some pretty damn good shit. I don't know, but I just don't. Again, provided Admiral exists in the you know, some sort of black hole in my mind where I just don't. I don't know. It's just a blind spot for me, total blind spot. So,
I mean, let's be honest. Like, the problem is here, like, you gotta build a team and shuttle it to NA from a region that is the metaphorical equivalent of like trying to source talent from a puddle of partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. Like, come on, man. This shit is so starved. Like,
so my question is,
yeah,
is this the best they could do in terms of European roster? Because is it just Europe's fault? Is it just Europe just being shit? Europe just too bad. There's not enough good players in Europe, and that's just well.
I mean, you could sell your roster, your franchise slot, and get Kevster. That's like you can.
Sick! I can have one player.
Okay. We'll say it this way: Master, Funny, Astro, Kevster are definitely better EU players. Shockwave's a better EU player.
Yeah, sure. I don't think that they could compete with those offers though, and those are people chasing offers.
Yeah.
I think they got. Did they? I'm blanking so nasty on this team.
So I mean, is it not a case of just like
I have to feign ignorance to answer your question.
When you're limited to EU, are you just not screwed by default?
In some ways, I think it's limiting. I have to hand wave and hop on the fence here. I don't know enough about EU to say whether or not like Backbone was good enough, or if Hadi like had any kind of challenging opponents at main tank that could compete. I think Poco's a great pickup. I like their support line. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be honest. I think it really comes down to Backbone and if he's any good.
Okay, let me ask a very unfair question. Just because I have to counterweight this Weasley little bullshitter here and put him on the spot. Your Poco, your career might be on the line this year in order to... Do you go to Paris or London?
Do I go to Paris or London? I think, as unfair as it is to say, like, probably Paris. Yeah. But I don't know if I got an offer from Paris, assuming I did.
He did.
Yeah, but there again, like there's a Christopher, like there's a connection there. You believe in that system. Like it's a tough decision. That's not easy. You don't know anybody in Paris. Maybe you know Dredro. I don't know.
No, like Poco definitely got an offer from Avala. Like,
yes,
I remember that was actually in an interview I did, and it's like it's like basically the way she proposed to Poco to come to Paris was like the Coney Island guy, the Ariana Grande come to Coney Island. I miss you. Like, the
TikTok.
The choice was there. I'm sure there might have been, like, I think if you go to Jack and go like, this guy's very popular, can you get him a popular bonus? That's probably a possibility that he had a better contract offer while also being able to maintain or being there with Chris, which is, another big thing. But like, it's not by much. I think like it's not an unreasonable position for Poco to just go with a Spitfire, all things considered, and just, I don't think it's a big difference, but I think there's a couple of percentage points where I'm thinking I'm more likely to I'm going to have a career next year if I stick with the Paris Eternal, just also because of the regionality stuff and whatnot. You could become like an audience hero there.
Face.
Yeah.
I get it.
I mean, I see it both ways, though. I mean, you got a good relationship with Christopher. He's still there next year. You could stay. I mean, a lot of things are going to happen. I think the Christopher link is really strong for Poco. So I think for him, it makes a lot of sense to go to Spitfire because the Christopher link is, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the biggest part of it. Well, and whatever the contract looks like. So I know, obviously, Paris didn't offer him a lot, but You know, for some players, any offer's good, but I don't know, like for Poco, where he didn't get to play for a whole year, to I don't know, get something on a Western roster. And stuff. I think London could punch above their weight, but it's just on paper they just look like weak in all respects, and then they don't even have that like crazy Gumba buff where like he's just got a proven track record of, you know, making these underdog teams really good.
I think Chris as head coach is a question mark, which I'm willing to entertain as an option because we know him to be very cerebral in his role and like just a people person, just like someone that has knowledge about like the psychological makeup and the atmosphere of a team. I think he won't mess up there, but it's definitely a question mark. And honestly, he has his work cut out of him for him as like the first head coach position. Yes, it's like a regional thing, and he gets to be the head coach of a British team, but like this is not the easiest situation to be put in.
Oh, totally.
Man,
100%.
if only there were more to, you know, scour from for EU. Just EU is just such an unfortunate place for Overwatch because there's just very little link to the Overwatch League. And yeah, I know London and Paris exist, but no one the fact that they're playing out of NA instead of EU, obviously ping's a big issue there, but you know, you don't have a strong base for EU to develop EU. This is not like League of Legends where LEC is amazing.
Yeah.
I think the European talent could be there. It's just not well fostered in a game like Overwatch at all, sadly. So
I mean, there's decent talent from Europe peppered across the league. Like you have Funny Astro, you have Cavster,
It's just shallow.
But it's not.
There's a pool,
and you can't compete for them. Yeah.
So few and far in between. Like, how crazy is it that you look at NA and there's so many exciting rookies, and you look at EU, it's like, I don't know, doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So, okay, we should wrap into the rankings now and just wrap into like where we think they're going to be. So, I mean, I'll start because I've gone last pretty much every single time, so I'll go first this time.
Okay.
Yeah, they are in the. Let me have a look. 10 to 13 range for me. 10 to 13.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Which is bottom four. Bottom four.
That would be exactly where I am as well. I would say bottom four, and I feel like strongly about that.
Yeah, no, I don't hate bottom four. I would even say bottom three. And if they outperform that, it's going to be. You have to consider it a success given the circumstances they're in.
I mean, the bar was set pretty low last year, so if they do much better than that, I think they've done well. And I think they will do better than that. You have 24 games instead of 16.
Right.
Way more chances of, and you've got a better roster than you had last year, hypothetically. And who knows? Maybe they could beat Paris, because Paris have mostly pretty much the same team plus Glister. Just Paris did a reasonable job of punching above their weight last season. That's why just feels better looking and talking about Paris.
Does it not feel suspect to you guys that basically 0 teams in NA feel like they have significantly changed power level? That is I'm currently I'm having visions of me bullshitting based on, maybe there's a bias in me that's just I'm going to start measuring by last season and then extrapolate how the changes have moved everyone. But I feel like I don't think if anyone if anything, the team that probably that doesn't make sense. They were the best regular season team, I guess, in Shock. In NA. But I don't know if a team has really significantly changed, dude. I don't think Titans yet by comparison, Titans is a better roster than last year. Then compared relatively speaking, probably not. Same for London.
Well, everybody else is, I mean, maybe Mayhem have a worse roster, but everybody else has an equal or better roster in a lot of respects. So
that's true, but in relative sense, right?
This is a super competitive game, and certain teams, I mean, budget comes into factor at the end of the day, and teams with bigger budgets are gonna get and hold on to more successful players.
Yep.
So, we can talk about Kevster and how he's the shining star of EU, but no European teams are ever going to see him.
Yeah,
No European team will ever see this guy on their team. So, is what it is.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So not a great outlook for London, but I think positive compared to last year. But even then,
yes.
Take with that what you will, hoping for the best,
but
preparing for the worst.
Keep in mind, we are comparing the actual performance of London against the hypothetical performance of London. Last year, when you thought about British Hurricane and what they could achieve, the theoretical was a higher upside than this team has theoretically now.
Sure.
Yeah, but the ping difference, I think, was a pretty big factor.
Sure. Fair.
So that's the bone I'll throw them.
Yes.
Now they're in a team house, they have ping, like all of that should help. So again, as we wrap up for London, not the best of prospects, but can remain hopeful. I think Christopher's a good coach.
Yes.
And maybe he can lead the team to success. That's going to be our London Spitfire preview. As we move on now, I'm going to change my background.
Gladiator. They're Glads, yeah? Glads are next. Gladiators.
Gladiator, boom, boom. Marco Rubio's favorite team. All right, welcome to the 2022 Overwatch League team previews. North America. We'll talk about one of the most popular teams. Certainly your favorite Los Angeles team, I think. I think it's pretty safe to say that.
Yeah.
It's none other than the LA Gladiators, where this guy right here is back. Space. He's back on the team. And LA Gladiators have kind of looked as stacked as ever. I mean, some of the best parts of the team remain. Space, Shoe skewed. Fantastic players. Kevster's still there. MVP caliber. I mean, when you have an MVP caliber playing a team, you're already singing the praises, you know. So he made a role star, didn't he? Is Kevster a role star or not? Was it
that is a good question.
I forgot.
Look.
Can't remember.
I think so.
Can't remember. So you have a roster that has 3 very interesting DPS players. One of them is a clear MVP candidate.
Yeah.
One of them is Arns, who had one of the biggest years of DPS ever in the history of Overwatch League.
Yes.
And I think forever we are pining for the same level of performance out of Arns, and maybe he'll get there. You have Panapan, one of the most sort of talked about, and at one point would have been one of the most hyped up rookies, and now kind of still hyped for, but for some other reasons rather. And yeah, it's a little bit unclear, maybe a bit of a question mark. He does come over from a different game, although he was quite successful in Valorant. Sadly, unlike Arns didn't quite do well in Valorant. Panapan killed it.
Yeah.
We have the tank line, new main tank. Space returns. Ryan is here from AT. Funny Astro comes over in the support from the Philadelphia Fusion. Great pickup. I mean, if you're going to go for a Western or just any main support, Funny Astro is one of the top picks you could potentially go for. So overall, I mean, the team goes from strength to strength across the board. Let's start with the DPS line. 3 players, 1 MVP candidate. Was he a role star? Did we confirm that?
Yes, he was a role star.
And a DPS role star.
Should have been as well. Yeah.
I like Kevster. I like the peaks that Ons can bring. I liked Patafan in the past. There is a lot of question marks with this DPS trio. And none of them have to do with Kevster, to be fair. That I will say. I've been converted to the church. I am indoctrinated. I am a Bible-thumping Christian Kevster stan. I agree. He's fucking cracked. He's nuts. I haven't seen all the flexibility, but I trust and believe that he could probably do it. I don't know if Ons can reach the same peaks. I don't know if Patafan has what he did when he was playing on like the Paris Academy team or in contenders in any facet. Ergo, I am a little concerned.
Isn't that concerning though? I mean, they still have one of the best DPS lines in the league, surely. On paper.
On paper? Yeah.
On paper, I would agree. I would love, I want to see peak Ons saddle up with Kevster and just pound.
What if it wasn't peak Ons? What if it's just like an average arms.
Mid-ons,
still...
I think it's good. I don't know if it's like
because the problem, Joe, is
best.
peak arms is like the best hit scan the world has ever seen.
Yeah,
Agreed.
So I mean, like mid arms.
But that's like the lens that I feel like everybody is prescribing him, and it's like I don't think like that's like, something you can replicate.
Is it awful? Like, oh, okay,
it's not awful.
So it's like Arns. Oh, Arns is not the greatest hit scan in the league. Is that the worst fucking offense? I don't understand. Like,
it's definitely not. It's definitely not the worst offense. It's definitely like good. But there are like holes that duo doesn't fill. Right? Like Arns is a dedicated hit scan player. If you need a tracer and a flex, if you need a flex and a hit scan, cool, you've got that covered. I do not think Pataphan is somebody that I would put my money on. Just from the outside looking in, I know that there are plenty of coaches that are well acumened and trust and can see the inner workings of the scrims. I get that. From my position, I do not trust Patty. Just can't. I will be happily be proven wrong. But at this point today, I cannot.
Onto a person that does trust Patty. Go on, Yiska.
I think here's my question. You have more money than the Queen.
Sure.
Are those, and I'm not sure if that's true, it's actually, bear with me. Is that the true DPS that you go for? Like, okay, you're probably not getting proper. That's fair. You're not getting the O2 boys. I think the Shock got their claws in sometime last season. They were not going to lose grip there, right?
Yep.
Then again, I think you can compete for almost every single other DPS player that isn't on the Shanghai Dragons. So do you go on Patty based on that? Now, Patty seems like a face thing, and I trust him there. It's a gamble, I feel like. And Ans,
because he gambled on skewed and got that right, but
yes, very fair point. And it's probably the best time for Patty to get in, also with Overwatch 2.
Agreed.
Ans Ans feels like he always has 1 foot in retirement. And that has been true for Ans forever. Right? Mm-hmm. So that is kind of scary. I get it though. Like, it feels like after this season for Glads, you're like, I can have another very good season, or I can hit all my peaks and then I have a chance against the Shanghai Dragons. And if your ultimate goal is to win the Overwatch League, you probably make the place that has the highest upside. You're not getting proper, so what's your plan B? I think this is a feasible plan B if you're going for a win in the Overwatch League. If you're going for highest possible win rate on paper, I think I'd choose a different DPS line other than Kevster, who of course would be set.
It feels like they are choosing based on, like you sort of said, where the highest potential is. And we've seen the highest potential for Arns. And I think there's a lot of belief that Pataphan's potential is also super high. I mean, I think I remember casting him in Gauntlet in 2019. He was like the only other player that I felt like was holding his own versus Sparkle in a Doom meta.
Right. Agreed.
And that's only one of Patty's. Patty was a super flexible player, played a whole bunch of roles. He had hit scan and projectile, including Widowmaker. I mean, I've seen Patty at his peak in Overwatch, and I know he was crazy good. He was just too young. He was just so young. If it wasn't for that fact that he was young, he would have been in the league after Gauntlet 2020. He would have been in 100%. He was that good. But, story of Pataphan is that Overwatch kind of failed him as a game because he had nothing to do in Tier 2. He had nowhere to play. Pacific region was dead. He literally couldn't compete anywhere because he lives in Thailand. It's just unlucky, right? You're bound. I mean, we talk about Europe as being a bit of a dead place for contenders in Overwatch. I mean, fucking imagine if you're in Thailand. Yeah, at least you exist. You're in Thailand, you just don't even exist in contenders. So of course he's going to move on, play Valorant, whatever. Goes to Champions in Valorant, one of the most exciting players on Jet. I mean,
yeah.
I think if Patty gets back to his old peak, I mean, that's pretty crazy. But I mean,
I agree.
it's just the problem with the Glads is they're 2 out of 3 DPS, they have to bank on trying to hit their old peaks.
Yes.
And that's kind of scary. What I'll say is, like, I think Arns can still carry on Widow. The problem with Arns isn't that he's maybe not as good as he was in 2020. I also think his heroes are not as good as they were in 2020. Widow in particular. Widow, ever since she got that 175 HP nerf, she's been so much worse as a hero. I've tuned into Arns' streams every now and then. His mechanics, I think, are still good. When he goes on Widowmaker, the guy still pops off, even though Widowmaker's way weaker. I think I don't like his other picks as much as I like his Widow, which is maybe an obvious thing to say, but no, I don't think I rated his other hit scans that highly. I think he's, if we find another Widowmaker meta, if Widowmaker is good in Overwatch 2, I fully expect that Arns can carry the shit out of this team on that hero.
You can
alone.
give him like an Ashe, and it's good. Like well above average, statistically performed well. Like it was good. Outside of that, it is shallow.
Because
just
I mean, this is where you ask the question. Is like, I mean, Yiska kind of brought this up, but if we're talking about peak, Arns is there. But if we're talking about more consistency, maybe they could have gone for like Happy instead. You know, Happy was available. Who
I
else?
tried to get Kai. Maybe I'm not sure if he was free.
I don't think he was available. I don't think he was available.
Okay.
But I don't think Atlantis let him go.
Yaki was available if they wanted to steal him.
That's real talk. Like, do you take Yaki or Ans? Do you take or Yaki's a special case. It's not really remotely the same. But do you take Padipan or Pelican or something like this? Right? Like those people are available.
You probably should take Pelican.
Hypothetically, yeah.
Unfortunately,
if they were on the same market, same timeline.
They were on the same market. Unfortunately for Padipan, you would take Pelican over Paddy, 100%. So I don't know what happened there.
I think
I don't know if they went for him.
It's just like the connection to Piggy. I'm pretty sure. Like they're very good friends.
I have to imagine Glads both pay better and have a stronger team on paper. So I mean, brother, Piggy better be like your godfather or some shit, because you're giving up a lot to just be with Piggy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
You better be getting married to Piggy, no prenup, to go with that option. Just saying. Like, fuck me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there probably were better options. But they went with who they went with. I mean, this is an interesting thing as well. You guys will remember when DPay was talking about this some time ago, and he's like, okay, yeah, Glads have money, but it's not like they can just get any player they want.
True.
Because even if they have money, you can throw a bag at a player and they'll still decline you for whatever reason. And that's what DPay said about roster building. I think coming from 2020 to 2021, he's saying it's like it's not just like, oh, we didn't give people good offers. It's like even after giving good offers, they still decline. So what do you do? Yeah, what do you do? I don't know.
Let's be honest. Like the way it felt like that there was some tension, I guess, in the off season. I could totally see that being built up by. Okay, wow. Let me be very. I don't know, right? But like, if you're frustrated with off season, how it's going, maybe it is just missing on a couple of those, right? So,
yeah, I think DPay this off season also complained about maybe Glad's not moving fast enough on certain players or positions. So that was a cause for his personal dissatisfaction with the Glad's management, which eventually led to him leaving.
Yeah.
I don't actually know. I'm just kind of reading between the lines here. This is how you know when I know something, when I don't know something. When I don't know something, I try really hard to read between the lines. When I actually know something, I just don't say it, or like I just give you a bullshit answer because I actually know the real answer. But no, I don't know. I'm trying to speculate. I don't know what could have happened. I just imagine, maybe they went for Pelican, but Houston got there first, and Glads couldn't get their shit together to put together an offer, and then they fucked up. Who knows? Like, that could have been it.
It's not the end of the world, but that's what it feels like for sure.
So where do we place this DPS realistically? Really quick, we have to move on. But this is not a mid DPS. Surely this is not a mid. This is way above mid, right?
It's a good DPS. Like this is a DPS line that like should be in contention for like stage playoffs. Could probably contend for titles. Like this is a team. Like this is a trio that can compete. as much as like I can't clock Patty. I just can't right now. But I trust in this coaching staff and believe that like they see something there. So that has some weight. Yeah, I think it's a good DPS lineup, but I think I'm definitely jumping in front of the train of this community narrative. Like this is like a world beating DPS lineup. I just don't see that.
It's a DPS lineup that has the potential for first.
Yes.
But also the potential to just be
big spike.
Not good.
Five.
Not good, but just below where you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Reiner space. So I don't know a lot about Reiner. I know he used to run by Frill and Shape.
Yep.
He's had a few names. Played on AT. Played on Redbird.
Mm-hmm.
Huge history of winning in contenders.
Yeah.
Space is space. I mean, space needs no introduction, really.
No.
Obvious franchise player for the LA Gladiators. He's like the face of the team. He is the longest serving member on this team. One of their best players as well. Yeah, main tank, off tank. They cover all the positions. Is Reiner an upgrade to Muse? We'll start there.
I would say yes.
By the way, it's kind of crazy that Space got to be the franchise player of the LA Gladiators after having been with the other LA team since like being 17.
Yeah. I almost forget. You almost forget he was on the Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
But,
it doesn't feel. It feels so far in the past that like it's not like the immediate thing that you recall. I think Space is going to be fantastic. So I have a lot of. Go ahead.
Did they upgrade? Did they upgrade the tank line?
I would say yes. I would say that Muse had a lot of deficiencies as much as they kind of gambled and won on like the early like dive ending meta, which plays directly into Muse's wheelhouse. And I thought he was good at that. But I think Reiner is a more well-rounded main tank, and is of a breed of player who I think can bridge the gap. Is probably one of the only main tanks. Western main tank, let me clarify. Western main tank that can probably bridge the gap and be like a good tank player. I'm of the opinion that I think in a post-Wrecking Ball world, any main tank that can survive is probably like more flexible than he leads on. And I've heard as much talking to some of the NA guys. So I have a lot of like faith in Reiner. I think he's going to be kind of a project player and probably should see some starting play.
I'll also comment real quick because I said that Skewed was a gamble win for Face, but I think Muse might have been a gamble loss. In the same regard, right? So it does come and go. That does mean that Patty is obviously a gamble, as we've all alluded to. I mean, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I think this tank line rates? God, I'm thinking definitely top 4, maybe even a top 3 tank line.
Yeah.
In NA.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
Above Kaluj solo tank. Below Fearless Harmbin.
Yep.
Maybe pretty equal to Gator Hawk. The more I think about it, pretty equal. I have them above Piggy.
Yep.
Above Kelly or Samag. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty highly rated tank line. I'm going to be real with you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is my confidence in space and the fact that I know Reiner had a lot of success in tier 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other thoughts?
No, I agree with this. I think like Reiner is the player that just necessarily slots into what your kind of issues you face with Muse. I think they won't have a Ryan.
He's got
issue.
Ryan in his name. They're like we gotta get a Ryan player. Oh, this is a guy with Ryan's name. We gotta get that guy.
Yep. Of course, also
the only other player you could get with Ryan in his name is Reinforce.
True.
Yeah.
So the option was Reinforce or Reiner. So you gotta get Ryan on your team.
Yep. No, I think that's a really good front line. I think what I'm kind of interested in, when I interviewed Hydron, I asked him like who of the AT players will have the most trouble like acclimating to the Overwatch League and who will have the most trouble like when it goes bad, and he said like Reiner without skipping a beat. Like
it's because of his personality, it's because of his attitude.
Yeah. Yeah, dude's a chat.
A bit of a hothead. Bit of a hot-headed player, I think.
Yeah. But in a fun way, I think. More so than an annoying way.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, that coaching staff would have to rein him in. It wouldn't be too hard. You just bench him for space and then you see what happens. But
Nah, you got to be on your best behavior, bro. You're playing against a franchise player and you wanted some playtime.
Mhm.
I mean, this is one of those situations where, you know, this is the best season to deal with troublesome tank players, because it's like, if you want to be a dickhead, and we're just going to bench you for the other guy. It's that simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want your debut season looking that way. So and you're on one of the best teams as well, so you need to bring your A game. It's a high expectation, you know.
Yeah.
You've joined a Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes level team here, so you need to. There's some high expectations for output.
For sure.
And tell you what, Ferrari's doing good this year, so it's a good sign. Let's move on to supports. Funny Astro, True Skewed.
Ooh.
Upgrade?
I have a hot take.
Upgrade, side grade. I mean, you've replaced Moth. I mean, Moth is already fucking insane.
Yep.
Kind of just side graded, maybe.
I would agree that it's kind of just like a side grade. I think you have a good piece in Funny Astro. I've been very high on Shu for God knows how long, so I don't think I need to really kind of comment there. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to think about Skewed, because everything that we've heard about supports, like, I feel like he just isn't gonna play. Unless there's like a double flex again. Like that's like the obvious way in. I don't think that,
Or
like,
meta.
but is
If
Brig
Brig's
gonna be
in.
the same?
Well, no,
Like,
but
is she gonna play the same that, like, we remember him being so good at?
probably not going to have a stun anymore. But aside from that, Brig is still Brig. Rally is probably still the best ultimate in the game.
Yeah.
It's still stack healing. It's still one of the best dive and anti-dive supports.
Would assume
I
so.
would roll Skewed out. I think Funny Astro is likely to get game time.
I'm kind of assuming he's probably going to be the starter.
Depending on the meta. It really depends on the meta.
Yeah. There are more metas where I think he fits, where Skewed is like very specialized. I look at the maps. I
Problem
look at
is,
how
the only overlap that I see is literally in the why am I struggling? Brig. Just talked about Brig and I'm sure there's only in the Brig. And if you want to pick a Brig player, well, there's a couple of things you got to think about. One, who's a better Brig player, but second of all, like, what do you want that Brig player to flex into throughout the map if you plan to change comps? So do you want a Brig that can go into a flex support, or a Brig that can go into Lucio or Mercy? That's the decision you got to make. So again, depending on meta, somebody will be playing somebody with bench. I mean, that doesn't say a lot, but it does say that it shouldn't be another Moth situation, is what I'm trying to say.
No, yeah, 100%. Like, this is going to be a more, like, fluid role for the Gladiators. As much as, like, I've jumped in front of that. To kind of use that logic though of, like, what meta historically has been more prevalent, a double flex or a flex and a main support? It feels to me
Skewed Brig is main support, so he does cover that.
Agreed. He covers one hero in that position.
One of the most important ones, to be fair, as well.
Yes, and one of the most modern. Agreed. I have no qualms there whatsoever. But when I look at how new this game is, when I look at how much flexibility and maybe even like compositional flexibility you're going to be on the map, on maybe even the point, we don't even know what this new game mode's even going to play like as of yet. I figured it out. I say Astra.
I say Astra if they're playing Rhino. If they're playing Space, they play Skewed. Because of how the pairing works in terms of compositions you can run.
Sure.
Rhino's there to play your Rhine. Again, it's in his name. He's there to play your Rhine. If you're going to play Rhine, you got to play Funny Astro because you're going to play Lucio. If you're playing Space, you're probably not playing Rhine. You're probably going to be playing Dive Tanks, maybe Rosario at the most. You're going to play Skewed, most likely. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a potential thing to look at.
That's kind of an interesting point.
I do wonder, though, is Funny Astro an upgrade, a downgrade, or a side grade to Moth? And I have a follow-up to this. There's a reason why I'm asking this. Where do we?
I would say upgrade.
Okay, because my follow-up question was, if he's not a clear upgrade, why even get rid of Moth? It feels like Moth could have just stayed on this roster, right?
Yeah.
So,
Moth.
Yeah. No, I never rated his Brig all that high. Am I wrong in saying that?
Moths?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I didn't get to see it. Because Skewed was playing it the whole time.
True. But I feel like there were times on Shock where like that was called upon and it just wasn't like notable. Whereas like obviously Skewed was very notable. Like Astro was at least.
So they made the right call.
I would say so.
To get Funny Astro and sit him off.
Yeah,
More,
I would say so.
like, Funny Astro is legitimately, I believe. Am I missing someone obvious? He's probably the only Lucio that I would not feel totally handicapped when I'm playing against Lee Jae-gon. Like, he's mechanically up there.
Yeah.
And then I can't think of a name that inspires the same confidence in me in that regard. I think he's legitimately just like the second best or 1A, 1B Lucio.
Yeah. I agree. And like he's not even like serviceable like that. I think that's an understatement. Like I think he's just good at like the rest of the main support pool. And yeah, I think he's just like the safest bet that you can put into a lineup, and I don't think you're ever going to be like upset at Funny Astro for something.
For sure.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I like this backline.
Has a lot of experience in a mixed team as well. Literally been to Korea. He went to Korea.
It's competing for the best backline in NA, right? Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Well, just overall.
Yeah.
Like, call me crazy, but I like this backline more than I like Chengdu's backline.
Do you like it more than Izayaki Lee Jae-gon?
No, I don't. But I like it more than Creative Indime. I like it more than Super Rich Irony. I like it more than Fix Aim. I think outside of Izayaki Lee Jae-gon and Bebe, Glads have the closest backline to the Shanghai Dragons backline.
I agree. Yes,
I would say so.
The only other backline that could be really good is Field of Chio, but
yeah,
I mean that could just be that.
Or
Field of Chio might be. Oh yeah, Chorong Twilight as well. Fuck. I like them more than OG Ultraviolet. I like them more than Chorong Twilight. I like them more than Chio Fielder currently. Yep. Shu skewed Funny Astro. You have MVP candidate and role star on this team in the form of Shu. Yeah, it's crazy good. I like this. I think they could be the second best support line in the entire world, if not maybe even competing for best.
Yeah, would agree.
So that is by far the best part of their team is that support line, and that's considering how good the other two lines are.
Yeah.
So that all up, we might as well cover the changing of the guard for the guard being parent organization, changing the guard for the coach line here. Face unto Smash. People, for some reason, I gotta just clear something up. People, for some reason, think when they talk about Face come in and it's like, oh, they got a brand new head coach. I'm like, guys, Face has been with this team since 2020. This is his third season with the Glance. He's not new.
No,
this is not. They didn't just grab some. I think Face is, because the thing is, Face is not very public as far as being a figure on the team. D-Pay was that guy. He does all the interviews. His face is on there. He streams. He shoulder gates people. Like, he's out there. He puts himself out there. Face is really behind the scenes, right? So when Face when Face comes in as a head coach, people like legitimately thought he was just some new guy who's never been part of the team without realizing he's been here since season 3, for fuck's sake. So people are like, oh man, it's gonna be a whole new coaching structure for the LA Gladiators. I'm like, is it? The head coach is the same guy who's been here since 2020, is it? I guess. Okay, you got Hunter and Smash, but people acting like it's going to be a completely different experience. I'm like, I just don't think it is.
Yeah.
Like, people just not giving Face credit. It's just kind of annoying.
I think like what you could say about Face is despite like Sydney Dropbears, I don't think he has been a head coach.
Talon?
No, he wasn't a head coach at Talent. I thought so as well, but he wasn't.
Well, okay, so you worked under Arachne, but I think the thing to remember about Talon, because I know Talon a little bit better in terms of that era, 2019. From what I could see and tell, I felt like he was more active than Arachne as far as the coaching goes.
Sure.
I feel like this is the sort of situation where you look at like a Shanghai, where, okay, Moon is like the head coach, but I feel like in terms of how active they are in how their team performs, I feel like the other coaches probably do a little bit more there. It's kind of like the O2 boss and the rest of O2 situation, right? Which leads into my point about Smash, which is another coach coming in as their assistant. Smash assistant coach on O2 Blast. that led them to a year of success last year, an unmitigatable success, just a humongous success, domination of the region. So, I mean, I think FaZe is more than. I think I'm biased because I know him, because I know what he does. I've have a lot of history there, and I've seen what he can do with teams, and I know that players respect him, and that he's got a good head on his shoulders.
Sure.
Doesn't have any hair, but the head is good. He loves it. He knows he's bald. He doesn't mind. He had to make space for more brain matter, so he had to clear out a bit of space.
There you go.
Unter's speaks for himself. I think everyone holds Unter in pretty high regard because he was very active on Atlanta Reign, even though so there's a couple of things here. I think people probably overrate Unter and underrate FaZe. Overrate in the sense that I'm not saying Unter is not good, but I think people thought Unter on Reign was like some mind-blowing, unbelievable factor, and Unter joined the team and they were suddenly good. It's like, no, he was there since the start. He was on the Reign since Melee, day one. He didn't just magically turn the team around. He was there the whole fucking time. This has been clearly debunked. All this entire Unter narrative, it's just been completely debunked by both Unter and his players and Sephi. So in that sense, he is overrated, but he's still very, very good. He's rated correctly in the sense that he's good, but he's overrated in the sense that there's a fan narrative that he was
he's some sort of miracle worker.
He is all of Atlanta Reign and they're nothing without him. That's just not true. And then FaZe is underrated because people just fail to acknowledge he even existed on this team. And I think a lot of fans don't even realize who Smash is because they're just not aware of the rest of the staff on O2, I guess. I don't know. But I feel like I have a lot of confidence in this coaching line because I know what every single person on this team brings to the table.
Yep. I mean, you look at the track record for everybody, just period. Let's argue at the lowest common denominator. You look at FaZe, I think he's done a lot with very little. I think I trust the Glad's gatekeeping in the way, of choosing, of scouting, potential leaders and coaches. I think they've done a good job. And you look at Unter, you look at his success, you look at FaZe, his success, you look at Smash, his success. If you're gonna argue from results, at the very least, this is a good coaching lineup, period. Even if you have a question of can FaZe, is FaZe's role going to change so much that he may struggle? Probably not, if I'm going to be completely honest. But even if you want to hold that, if you want to take that L, that's fine. The success should speak otherwise, at the very least.
Okay, let's head over to how we rate this roster. I might as well go first again. I did it last time. I'm just trying to even things out a little bit. 1 to 3 in NA. And I think anything below 3 would be a bit of a failure for this team based on the roster quality. Just looking at across the board,
yeah,
I think the Gladiators and Dallas will have an interesting duel. And that third position could go to anyone between Shock, Rain, even New York if they're just monstrous,
sure,
they get the perfect meta, something like that. Maybe Toronto if they're just monstrous, but yeah, I don't know. They're definitely top. Really, actually, even top 2. Maybe 1-2. Is that crazy? 1-2. 1 to 2.
I don't think it's crazy.
Because the more I think about it, I'm like, who's third? Third is maybe Atlanta.
It's tough, yeah.
I'm like, well, Glad should be better than Atlanta, so why am I putting them third? No, they should be 1-2 then.
They have those peaks. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think they can be, and they probably should be with the name recognition on paper. But I hold firm that I think the DPS players for a lot of these teams will kind of indicate how strong or their end of season performance. And I think there is a clear number 1 team in NA. So I think that the Glads are probably going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 personally.
You see them going down as far as 4?
Yeah.
So outside of Dallas, who are the other 2 teams that could beat the Glads?
Definitely Atlanta has possibilities. Definitely Shock could. I think they're one of those spiky teams that I could see unseating Dallas as a clear top 1. Go ahead.
Can I fight you on that Shock matchup? Because I think Arns is better than Kilo. even a middle tier Arns. I mean, they're both. Here's the problem: if you anyone that wants to use the argument of like, oh yeah, Arns, you know, he has peaks and troughs, motherfucker, that's Kilo as well. You cannot talk about Kilo like he's so consistent when he's literally Arns but with like a less peak. So let's just put that on the table. Kevster proper, dude. I'm the guy that started the whole proper hype train. I'll be the first to admit that I was that guy.
Sure.
But he is still coming up against literal MVP candidates plus role stars like Kevster. I mean, that's a pretty fucking tough battle. So you don't even have the proper just shits on everybody buff because Kevster's on the other side, so it's not guaranteed.
Sure.
Space better than Kaluj. I don't really particularly care about the Sam comparison. We'll leave them out of this one. Finn Violet, not convinced that they're better than Funny Astro Shoe Skewed. So I don't have anybody on Shock better than anybody on Glads, to be honest with you.
I think that's fair. I am not of the opinion that I think Ons is going to be like. I agree that if Kilo has those same peaks and troughs, like that's a fair comparison. I would trust those rookies than somebody or two people rather who haven't actively been in or even actively been playing and like high level scrimming competitive Overwatch. Is that too obscene to say? You're taking two people from contenders and two people from Valorant.
I don't trust people from Valorant.
Where did Ons just come from?
Well, he just came from the San Francisco Shock.
Well, like recently though.
Well, he was more recently on the San Francisco Shock than he was on Valorant.
He wasn't on T1 like months ago?
He left T1 to join the Shock partway through last year. So he was more recent. He played more Overwatch last year than he did Valorant. So
maybe my timelines are fucked up. That could just be me.
I don't hold up the whole Valorant thing for Aaron very much at the moment, just because it's such a short-lived part of his career.
Sure, but even then, you're taking somebody who's been like 100% in Overwatch and somebody who kind of hasn't.
I've seen both Arns and Kilo play. I think, and that's recently as well. I still have Arns.
Sure, and like that's your angle, and I just disagree. I think that I don't trust Ons as much as you do. I definitely don't trust Patty. And yeah, I don't know. I think Shock can compete. I think Atlanta can compete. I think New York has the potential to compete. I put DPS at a premium. I like Kevster. I don't like the other two. I think they're going to be good, going to be contending for a title. I don't think they're better than Dallas, like, or they could maybe even peak. No, they can like peak at 1. I think that's fair to say. I think I'll budge there. I'll say 1 to 4 for sure. I'll lock that in.
Yiska?
Yeah, I don't think like Dallas is as locked into 1 as you guys appear to think. I think Glads could.
I haven't locked them in. I say Glads 1, 2. It could be either one, but yeah.
Yeah, I think like Glads. Second globally, dude.
Second globally after Shanghai.
I think so.
So you have them at 1, 2, but global, not NA.
Yes.
Ooh. Sheesh. Oh man.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. The problem is well, they could be better than Chengdu Seoul. They could be. It's possible. I did say I liked Funny Astro Shoe Skewed better than Creative Vindime or the host of Chengdu supports they have. And look, the Chengdu supports are great. I just, you know, 4 of them, and I think they have less peaks, definitely than Shoe Skewed. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of still tilted by the whole Yveltal drama from last year. That still rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
So I'm down on their support line based on that.
I think based on name recognition of almost everyone participating in this roster, if they were to finish outside top 4 in A, that's a big upset for me. Like I'm
said
upset.
top 3. I said they're top 3. If they fail to make top 3, I'm already up. That's bad for me.
Yeah.
I said lowest 3, but realistically 1, 2.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. I mean, maybe something goes wrong, and Shock come out and Proper is literally Faker, and then he just hard defs everybody including Kefster and Leave, and it's like, wow, I guess this guy's just God. what do you do?
Yeah.
Then fucking, I guess that's just how it is. But hard to see them, in my opinion, losing to too many teams here. It doesn't mean that I think they're infallible. I think maybe a Houston could take a game off them. Atlanta might be able to scrape something through. Atlanta have been their bogey team for a while. I think that's a huge rivalry. Atlanta and Glads. I think that's one of Glad's primary rivalries is versus Atlanta, because of the shared history between those two teams. But I think overall, when you get to the end of the season standings, I expect Glads to be either first or second in North America, and probably top 4 global, if not top 5 global. Cool.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Feeling good about Glads. As every Gladiators fan, every single year should feel good about it. The real test will obviously be when the season starts. We'll see how things actually go. So, with that done, one more team for today's overall preview, this mega episode, which, again, you'll be able to find in very specific bite-sized versions as well, just for your specific team. And the last team we're going to do is I bring them up. It's good old Washington Just Us. So, welcome back to the 2022 Overwatch League previews, where we're rounding out our first half of North America. We talked about a bunch of teams now, heading over to the Washington Justice, where if you paid attention to social media, you'll have seen that their team just arrived in North America. The team's all there in DC and ready to play. It's a new Washington, a new opportunity, a couple returning faces. Decay, Assassin, Mag return. Everybody else completely fresh. And I think a lot of upgraded positions on this team as well. Like a shitload of upgraded positions. I actually feel pretty good about Justice overall. They have Happy fresh from Houston, who had I think a pretty good season. He was one of the standout players, if not the standout player on that team.
For sure.
They bring over Kalios from New York Excelsior, where I think Kalios did a good job of kind of bolstering New York in their time of need, and New York was starting to get some good distance off of having Kalios on the team. And 2 rookies plus 1 returning player. I had to be careful there. I nearly said 3 rookies, but Krillin's actually not a rookie. He was technically on London way back when. Just didn't really get a lot of game time, if any at all. Backed by Opener and Vigilante. So, a completely new support line. Probably an upgrade over Bebe Closer, but we'll get to that. We'll discuss supports when we get there. Let's start with the DPS, guys. How do you guys feel about Decay, Happy, Assassin?
Yeah. I don't think we need to say too much about Decay. I think that's pretty known quantity. Assassin, I think, for me, I think he was a good player that was like put in like really odd roles, if that makes sense. Like, it's not even roles. It's like last season did not do justice to what I think Assassin can do.
Justice to justice,
pretty much. Happy's quite good. I think he's a great dedicated hit scan. Will pair well. Like, either of them make great like roommates with Decay. 100%. Like that is a great duo. No matter how you want to like swap those pieces around, I like it. Quite a deal. Yeah.
Would you say Decay underperformed last year or anything like that? Does any part of his play last year sour his reputation or your view on Decay? Or do you think he'll just come in and just pop heads and do what he does?
I don't think he'll come in and pop heads. But I also have like tertiary reasons of why I think that is. I think they'll be okay. I think Decay, like, all things considered, should be good. And if he isn't, then that would be unfortunate, and I wouldn't. Much like it was last year. I think he should be good. Just as. Do I think that? I don't know what to think about this team, to be completely honest with you. This is a team that was woeful last year. And I kind of see similar.
On.
Excuse me? Would you like to defend the Justice in the 2021 season?
This man is talking about them as if they just like won their first game on the last day. What, dude? What kind of like? What the fuck is up with your emotional landscape? Where like London is like, yeah, you know, they're mid, and you say like this team is woeful, bro. Like,
in
get your
which
adjectives
context
in
did
line.
you hear? London is mid. I said their supports were mid. They were a bottom 4 team. Get the dicks out of your ears. Secondly, the Justice were a top 5 contending team, and they were like, they ended 6th, but they did not end 6th. Let's be very clear. They ended like a bottom performing team.
But their performance last year, therefore, wasn't woeful.
Yes, it was woeful. When you have arguably the best rookie signing, you have Decay. Did it look like Decay was playing in that team last year? Answer me that.
He wasn't bad.
Did it look like Decay? Okay.
He was still like a statistically like top 5 performing DPS, I think, in the league.
Oh, you think? Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
No, Decay was, dude. I swear to God, this man is like, I'm selling the underdog. This man is Robin Hood, bro. He's taking it from the rich and giving the clout to the poor. Like, what the fuck is up?
I'm hearing a lot of ad hominems. I'm not hearing any kind of examples. I've seen Mag on Ball. I've seen Mag on Winston. I haven't seen Mag on Ryan. I've seen Decay and Assassin try to coordinate dives because their main tanks were ass.
You did see Mag on Ryan because everyone can't shut the fuck up about when that one time he diffed Fearless.
Okay, fair. That's true. That's true. Thank you for reminding me. I'll admit that. However, this team was woeful up compared to expectations of the name recognition and this roster on paper. It was bad. Period.
I'm not sure if it was bad. I wouldn't. It was underperforming. I agree. I don't think it was woeful.
I think they ended only slightly below expectation. If we're expecting them, I had them pretty high. I think I had them top 3 in my preseason. And what did they finish again?
They ended the season in 6th, yeah, and 6th in NA.
Well, globally, 7th, 8th. Globally. No, 7th, 8th in global.
That's their like ladder finish, but in terms of like comparing their league standings, they were 10th.
Well, in any case, I think 6th place in NA. It's about 3 places below, I thought. So I'd say they underperformed, but I don't think they shut the bed as hard as some people make it out to be. I think they do if you thought they were the best team. If you thought they were number 1, then yeah, that's not very good.
Oh,
I did not have them number 1. I think they were top 3, maybe 3rd, based on roster quality. But even then, in hindsight, when I look at it, it's like they still had like Jerry and Tuba on their team, and it's just like, what are these guys doing? Like, what's that about? Like, that is so much worse. That is so much worse than what they got this year.
Yeah.
Happy Decay Assassins. Happy is just way better than Tuba Jerry. Just put it out there. Okay, you downgraded from Fury to Kalios. Oh well, fuck it. Closer, baby. We'll have to see on that one. I mean, we're still breaking down piece by piece here, so I don't want to get. I think the support is going to be more of a juicier discussion, so I don't want to get into it too deeply. But let's just say I think they've definitely upgraded DPS, 100%.
Yes.
Real quick on Assassin, I think Assassin also probably like only rarely showed what he actually is capable of last season. And there are some rookies that just need a year to establish themselves in the league and then pop off, right? Like that's totally fair. He also looked to be like stuffing spaghetti in his pants like half the season. Like he seemed pretty susceptible to stage fright or whatever. Like if he's now capable, bro, this is a good DPS line. And Happy also probably just like by the selection of the hero pool, like what kind of like he probably also could have performed significantly better. He could have been one of the best hit scans last year. Like this kid was nuts.
I think he started the season incredibly good. I think they ended in a meta that did not favor him.
Right.
I think Assassin, like the Justice last season felt like a pressure cooker, and I would put money on that it was internally. I think Assassin was probably like leading those dives because Mag was just like absent in terms of engaging.
Sure.
Like, it was torture to watch the Justice because they would never engage. And the only people who would were Decay and Assassin. Mag was just like the most passive main tank I've ever seen. Period. And that colors my like
I just don't know what
assessment of
happened.
them. I don't know either, and I don't know how they fixed it.
It's like Mag's little brother came and played on his account all of last year. Like the Mag I saw in Runaway is just so different to the Mag I saw last year. It just doesn't make any sense. So there's that. All right, are we done on DPS? Did anyone have any? I don't know. Yiska mentioned anything about the DPS yet? I think I'll just finish by saying I wasn't happy with the DPS last year. Fair. Not really any player, to be honest with me. Even Decay was just not. I expected Decay. Maybe my expectations are too high with Decay, but I expect him to be like that shining star on the team that pulls you out from all the bullshit. Because, bro, Prophet still did that. Fit still did that on Soul. You know, the team was shitting the bed, and these guys are still pulling their team through. I mean, fuck it. Who else? Yaki was like hard carrying Florida Mayhem, and his team was shitting the bed, right? So. I just never saw that out of Decay last year. I don't know. Nope. Like Decay's golden. I don't want to say he's washed, but last year was not a good representation of his potential. I don't know why his potential was so.
Can I maybe provide a reason as to maybe why that is? Just
is it the same reason Mag got repressed as well?
And
Fury,
no,
maybe Fury getting
maybe I don't know. I mean,
we have 3 good players: Decay, Mag, Fury, and all 3 of them just looked mid. Like, what's going on?
I think part of it is I do think that internal. I'm gonna prescribe here. I'm going to assume. Yes, I don't know. I am just gonna like call a spade a spade. I think you have a collection of good players and that kind of underperforming. That to me screams like internal turmoil. But for Decay in particular, I don't think that like NA as like a regional meta necessarily facilitated him all that well. Just him personally.
No.
I'll say that.
I think so let me put this in. If Washington played in APAC last year, they'd be a much better team, right?
I would say I would be more agreeable to that, yes.
Yeah, I agree.
They would have performed better.
All I know is that preseason scrims. Here comes the Scrim Bucks. You ready? They were doing really well in Asia playing dive, and then they came to NA and it was all Ryan and Lucio, and it's like, oh fuck. So that kind of fucked them up a little bit.
Yeah.
But then they.
I don't know if that speaks for Mag or Fury. I think that
they could have. For me, could they not have just done Glads and just went the full Briggs in ball mode? Like I don't know. I feel like Glads pivoted and Justice just didn't. Justice
agreed.
In the playoffs just tried to force Lucio and Moira, and they were just the worst team doing it. They were just not good doing it.
Yep.
I
think it was just like a sunken cost thing, to be honest with you.
It was just
that's like a tough call.
At that point, it's just like, what is the one composition that we can mitigate damage the most in terms of like, what is the best way we can play not to lose? This Lucio Moira bullshit. Oh, I'll just play that. We know we're not winning, but
perfect. You hit the nail on the head for me. They were playing not to lose. I felt like the entire season. That was the Justice for 2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well put.
So Justice for 2020. Yes, you haven't talked about the DPS in any sort of depth yet. So where do you stand on this? You mentioned some stuff about Happy.
Yeah. No, I think like Happy potential to be okay. You ready? Potential to be top 3 head scan.
I need a soundbite on my soundboard for ooh. So 3. Behind who? Lip's got to be one of them.
Lip Kai.
Lip Kai.
I want you to know 3.
I want you to know you've put a Predator below that. I know you're big on Predator. I also want you to know you put Fitz below that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Fitz below Happy.
Ooh.
Yeah. On hit scan? On hard hit scan? Yeah, no. Yeah. On hard hit scan, yeah. Bro, you're telling me you're putting Fitz over Happy in a Widow duel? I'm not.
Okay, no, in that context, then
yes, sure. I'm more agreeable to like the Fitz thing, but I think there are other names that like you have just like left out, and I'm like I don't know about that one, Chief.
Shy?
I would say Shy. I'm deferring to a lot of what AVRL has said about MN3, about like the peaks that maybe Kilo can bring. I can't speak to the valleys, to be fair. I've only heard good things. But like I look at some of these rookies and I've seen Happy and I've seen him on teams that I won't say that have used him, I think, properly, personally. He's good. Don't get me wrong, but top 3?
My problem with Happy is that he's another one of those hit scans where his best hero is Widow.
Yes.
Yeah. And
that's a
unless you're
dangerous
forcing
place
it.
And
that's a dangerous identity to have as a hit scan.
I'll say, because he's on Justice, just historically, you now have to say that this is not a team that brings the most out of people. I think that's unfortunately true.
Unfortunately, they do the opposite. They somehow ruin players instead of bringing their potential out. It's like they push the potential down. They put a hard glass ceiling on certain players somehow. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I think...
So given that, there's no way Happy could be top 3.
No, unlikely. But on a skill-by-skill level basis, like I think Happy... The shit I saw last year in preseason is nuts, bro. Like...
Sure. I get it. Vacuum. I'm there with you. But sadly, not how the world works. Sadly, Happy's on Justice.
We should really play out the season preseason scrims.
We'll see how the 5v5 environment goes. I'm hopeful for guys like Assassin, actually. I think Assassin has way more to show than what he's currently shown. I fully agree with Yiska in that comment a little bit earlier. I think Assassin was not given the best environment last year, to which people will say, well, isn't he in the same environment now? I'm like, maybe. I'm just carrying out some hopium that Mag will finally show his value, Assassin will finally show his value. Just all the shit I saw in Runaway, all the good shit I saw in Runaway. I just want to see. I want to see that. That's what I want to see.
Can I also bring the Mag hopium? Like Kalios made Yakpung look competent.
Playing together.
Like,
I don't know if you've read the box that you got in the mail, Yiska, but Overwatch 2 is a 5v5 game.
Yes, I understand. But like, I feel like this is more than just...
I know what you mean.
Like, Kalios is a leadership personality. Despite like his weird as fuck past, if we're being honest, like I remember there was some weird sham comments coming from this dude. Like he's a vocal leader. He probably won't bench Mag for a lot of it. I think they will cleanly split the hero pool. Kalios will be able to support there. And clearly delineate. I think this is a good pickup for a team like this. It just like needed some leadership quality, because it's like if your superstar player isn't capable of doing so, you need to have it come from somewhere.
Can I answer your question? Well, you weren't asking a question, but let me answer it anyway. Let me put a question out there to answer. Is that you're saying, oh yeah, you remember when Yakpung was bad on New York Excelsior, and then Kalios came in and he made Yakpung look good, and then Joe's like, yeah, but it's 5v5. My answer to that, Joe, is that, well, there still is a way for Kalios to do that. What he's going to do is Mag, if he underperforms, Kalios steps in place and he makes the whole team look better. So that's how he's going to do it.
I like that. But that's like the weird thing. It's just like, what intrinsically about this roster makes that like a real like scenario? Like, yes, it could be a meta thing that I 100% like agree with. But if we hold this to be true and we just move, again, hypothetically speaking, we move Kalios into the 2021 roster, like, why does that need to happen? And how is that not been, like, I hope that's been fixed. I'll put it that way. God, I hope it's been fixed. This is a frustrating team.
What's been fixed?
Like, I feel like I'm being gaslit. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I have so much like frustration with the Justice. You look at like their playoff performance. They were a worse, and it's not even like fair to say worse. Like, they were a Big Lots dollar store bin $1 movie rack version of the Dallas Fuel. They had like a good start, I think.
Yeah, that was a lot of teams. A lot of teams was the bargain bin Dallas Fuel last year. They were
I'm just
one of
looking
many.
about playoffs. I remember specifically just calling exactly what they were going to do because it was fucking. They had no morale. They come in, they're like, hey, Dallas plays like Lucio Moyer Reaper. That's sick. Let's do that. They did it. They sucked. Like,
Fair.
I feel wild, like remembering this team as being bad. Like, yes, they had a good start. 100% they did. And it was nothing but ass for the rest of the season. They had to cobble together wins. 1-3 in the June Joust.
So
Summer Showdown.
maybe it's better that we're moving into 5v5 where we can avoid that.
I hate this man
Hopefully.
that he brings this like energy to this discussion and then goes, by the way, you guys, Mayhem 6 to 8 mid. Like, fuck you, man. No, sorry, it was actually Boston.
Yes. Yes, Boston. It's like I don't know what to do with Boston. Like I have no like strong feelings other than like I think they're eventually going Korean, right? Like Florida, I'm willing to give like credit to rookies in a system that has been proven through multiple games than the Justice who looked bad last season and like have made improvements, but not significant enough improvements for me to like quantify them as like this brand new team. I don't think they're going to be very good. Is that wild to say? I don't know. Maybe I'm the crazy one. At this point, I wonder if I am.
We will settle this when we get to the ranking later. For now, but I swear to God,
This man's chakra is all fucked up, man.
Joe's about to put Justice in 6 to 8 next to Mayhem. Anyway.
You're not wrong.
Anyway, so what are the tanks? Kalios is all good, but probably a
Yes.
downgrade from Fury, right?
Yeah.
You kind of have to be.
Right?
Kind of have to be.
Unlucky.
Maybe a better player for this team.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be completely honest, I think he's a better fit for this team, but mechanically speaking, he is a downgrade.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree.
Mag should be good.
No, supports.
No, hopium.
I don't.
Hopium.
This is where I kind of have to defer to you. Like, is Krillin good enough to like warrant Vigilante?
Oh, thank
Or
God.
like
you
to
said
like
Krillin,
hold
not-
space?
and not another player. Did we actually have anything? I think we already kind of talked about tanks, so we went on this whole big thing about Mag already.
Whatever. Max
Fuck
gonna
it,
pop.
we've already done our Mag Kalios discussion. Kalios will carry Mag from the bench, or he'll just do it himself and get on the game. Vigilante
Breathe
Krillin
in,
opener.
breath out.
It's a brand new line.
He's just going to tell him when to breathe in and breathe out. He's basically going to sussery him, you know?
All right. Let's be clear about one thing. Vigilante is their best pickup. He's phenomenal.
Yes.
Talent esports. Fantastic player. Watches VODs. Dynamite. Does everything well. So good. But not eligible until
July?
July.
Ooh.
July 1st.
That's
Which
half
is
the
how
season,
deep
dude.
in the season?
That's a
That's
stretch.
1/3 of the season.
Half the season.
Yeah, 1/3
How
of
long
the
is it?
season. It's like
Let me look.
you hit
is
in the
third
middle
week
of
of-
stage 2.
Third week of mid-season madness. The third week of stage 2, yeah, is when he's available. So the first game he can play is versus Glads. Good luck. And then versus London. So that's a good game.
That's the one.
London and Titans after. So there's some.
So Washington, London. You know, that's two teams ranked 6th to 8th that they can play. You know, it's pretty even.
Mm-hmm.
Titans, another 6 to 8 matchup. Easy. So before that though, they're on Krillin opener. Now I think a lot of people are like pretty confused about opener more so than Krillin. I think Krillin did pretty good in T1. Krillin's maybe a little bit underrated because people just remember him in London.
Mhm.
But he was part of that very successful T1 squad last year.
Okay.
That was doing quite well. Now, I'm trying to remember. The problem is he didn't play. Well, the whole team didn't play the last 2 games of the playoffs because they got COVID and they couldn't play. They had to forfeit. So I'm like having a lot of trouble remembering specifically Krillin's play. M3 and Zest are easy to remember from that team, and I feel like they did the most. But it's too hard to like specifically remember Krillin's POV during that time.
There's a lot going on, for sure.
But I think I attribute everyone's success on that T1 squad to be pretty or as equal as I'm allowed to, because I think they all contributed that, and T1 had a huge turnaround in contenders when they were one of the worst teams, certainly one of the worst academy teams, and then they turned around that reputation real quick and had a phenomenal back-to-back season. So I'll give Krillin a pass on that. Probably would be playing a Vigilante over Krillin if you can help it, but I'll give Krillin a pass on that. I'm willing to say that he's a reasonable pickup, and people judging him off London is not a fair judgment.
It's not fair. Yeah.
Open is an interesting one because he was on like the Genji Academy teams, and I know what you're thinking. Genji is an academy team, but Genji also has their own academy teams. And it's just so hard to look at his history because he's never had too many examples of game time versus exceptionally good teams and players outside of season 1 last year, where he was a sub. He was one of 4 supports on Genji with Itzel and Stalker and a whole bunch of other players that you'd rather forget. And that Genji squad locked him down 0-4, did nothing, completely shat the bed. And then they failed to qualify into contenders the next season. So opener went to, well, if you can't play in Korea, and I don't know if he tried to play in China, but the only other region you can play in after that that's not called NA for Koreans is, I guess, Australia. He got an offer from Ground Zero, played. I'm pretty sure he won. You just check that again. But again, when you win Australia and you dominate Australia, no, he didn't actually win. My bad. But even if you do well in Australia, the problem ends up being like the same thing I talked about with Adam. It's just like, oh, cool, he's good, but I don't know what this means compared to anybody else, because you don't have a gauntlet, you don't have a showdown where, you know, you see this team from Australia up against another team in contenders. I can only look at them in a vacuum, and that's just not good enough. Like, I can't use that for anything. So his team came as second in contenders after Direwolves. So I don't know. They didn't even win Australia. To be fair, Direwolves was pretty decent in their own right. And he's playing on ping. I don't know, I'm adding some excuses. It's just a big unknown factor. People keep asking me. People come to me all the time. It's like, oh, what do you think of Open? What do you think of Open? I'm just like, I don't know what to think, because I just didn't get to see him play against enough good teams and good players.
Right. It's fair.
Yeah, that's a big question for sure.
Is it wrong to like say that this is probably like their weakest lineup? Like, Vigilante is good, 100%, but like, while Krillin played on T1 and we're not sure what to do with opener, like I like Kalios. I think Mag has like all the potential in the world. I like this DPS lineup in vacuums. Like, is it wrong to say that like support's kind of like their weakest link?
And they have to use opener because Vigilante is not available.
Yep.
And they have to use both of them.
Yep.
Up until Vigilante is available.
I think like the way this season is ramping up for them, right? Okay, fair enough. You're getting Glads in the first game. You can feel them. But then after that, you have... Just listen to the next games, okay? London, Titans. Okay, then Shock. Paris, Mayhem, Titans, London again. You might just give the boys some confidence.
They really got the bag in terms of matchups in there.
The schedule.
Yeah.
Strength of schedule, where it's just like, hey, strength of schedule for NA is you will play every single team in NA twice.
Does that not mean like they're going to be like, yeah, I mean, yes, I'm like 90% sure that's correct.
Yeah.
And then for Justice, you can have all your easy games just all together in one stage.
Does that not mean like they're going to have like a really stacked like stage of death?
So basically, like the way I read it is like their second stage is manageable. Like they, so basically, okay, stage 2 for where Vigilante is coming in after the third game is NYXL, Houston, and Toronto. No pushovers there. No. And then into Glads, and then London to Titans. But their third stage looks very doable. They go Shock, fair enough, not easy. But then Paris, Mayhem, Titans, London, and then into Houston. I think a 4-2 is locked in there. If you catch some confidence based on those games, you're probably looking at a 5-1. You get a good tournament going. I'm huffing hopium. They go maybe a little bit further, and then you have a Dallas Shock, NYXL, ATL, Boston Gladiators stage 4.
That, by the way, is the stage that just precedes the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The good news is there's no tournament phase for that stage. You just go straight to playoff/play-ins.
That's a tough one.
So the other good news is they can crash and burn in stage 4, but if their first 3 stages are good, they'll have enough points to make playoffs anyway.
Yep.
So that's what they got to bank on. Actually, they have such an insane strength of schedule. I would rather have a very hard stage 4 that doesn't have a tournament, fuck it,
Mm-hmm.
and then have a very easy stage 2 because the stage 2 gets you to an international tournament.
Correct.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And their stage 2 is so winnable. So winnable.
Certainly should be.
So if Washington don't make Mid-Season Madness International,
Is that a failure?
be disappointing when the strength of schedule is so damn good for it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the tournament qualification like? 8. Yeah, you got to just be top 8.
Come on. Yeah.
Washington just got to be top 8.
Yeah.
To make that. Come on, bro. With their strength of schedule in mid-season, like, come on, bro.
Yeah,
You can't be below top 8. Fuck me. Are we ready to do the rankings then?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Oh, man.
Strap yourself in.
Come on.
Do you want me to just say a number?
I'll go. Oh, I mean, if you have a number.
I just have a number.
Okay.
I think they make top 8, but I think they're 8th.
That's within my range. I think that's probably where I'd settle on the most likely. Yeah.
They squeeze in number 8, but they will go to mid-season madness. But they squeeze in number 8.
Fair. I'm of the opinion, right? I like the discussion we had of some previous like individuals about how like, oh, if you're aiming to like peak and win the league, like these are the moves that you make. And to me, the Justice can peak high, but like Jesus Christ, does like something have to change from last season? And maybe it has. Maybe Kalios can be that like engage heavy tank that like these people need to kind of rally around. Maybe that's the case. That could definitely be, that could bring Happy online. That could bring Decay online. 100%.
I know what changed. They got rid of Hawkery and they got Ty Dollar. There you go.
I mean, I'm not ruling that into consideration. Like if the coaching staff is what needed to be changed, great, cool. Let's change that. But like you cannot round up with the same culture or the same like style or whatever you want to talk system that you did last season. It was bad. I don't care what Yiska says. That said, I have them from like 5 to 9.
Are they going to lose to London?
In that window.
They're finishing below London, right, Joe?
They certainly they fucking better. They certainly, like, you don't have a team this stacked. And I do think, like, that in certain positions, like you Decay, Happy, Assassin, that's a good DPS lineup. The tanks are nuts. I'm a little bit out to pasture when it comes to the supports, but I thought the same thing last year, right? Like, they should be a good team, but I need to see some significant improvements across the board before I can make that designation. Because last year, I'm sorry, they were a bad team.
They were 6th. Shut up, dude. That's not bad. Like this man will deep throat.
What do I need
Paris,
to pay you?
And then
what do I need to pay you to go back and watch those games and just like enjoy existence?
Yeah, but 6th is still like
they finished 6th.
That's top
half. They started with a 4-0 stage. Fantastic.
I wish he would just crush bad teams with that same energy for once in his life.
I would love to. I would savor nothing more if anybody had the expectations that Justice had.
You know, DK actually like fucking atrocious player. Now Rolf. When
have I ever outside of a meme? You're nuts. You are crazy. What did you have them in your power rankings?
Yeah, okay, that's part of the problem.
Alrighty then. Thank you, sir. I'll take my money.
It was
top three. And they were 6th in A, 10th in the league.
Top 3 in A, I think.
Sure, whatever. Double E is worse.
Right.
And does not
they're going to finish 7.
You're 7.
7. Which
okay,
and this evaluation will hold until we do the power rankings episode, where I actually have to evaluate every position, and then we'll come to believe that they are actually 3rd once again.
You're wild.
You're like, bro, I think we're gonna get another Zarya meta, and the Decay is gonna get on that, and then Janu from the Void is just gonna hook a player out of Overwatch 2 and just into the Shadow Realm, and if Justice can beat Houston again like they did last year, then they could be 7th in my opinion, or maybe beat a New York that hasn't figured it out.
Yeah,
a New York that
that's
suffers too bad meta.
Yeah, this is where I'm betting on. Where I'm like going, like there are a couple of edge case teams where I'm like, one of them might fuck up, you know, and then Justice right there, pouncing at Joe.
How do you rate Houston's performance last year as a team?
Oh,
good.
What's your stance on Houston?
Good.
Yes.
Good
almost
because
equally.
Because they finished top 5. That is how language is used. I hate this man.
Because
wait, hold the phone. I was supplied some information.
Okay.
Please put your eyes onto what Eric just posted in the Discord. Am I correct in believing these are the power ranking positions of last year?
Yes. In no, like...
You need to explain it for the viewers because they can't see.
Explain yourself, Joe.
You are... Yes,
I'm fully...
I'm trying to. There's full, like, yes, I agree. Like, I thought the same way you did last season and was woefully under, like, appreciated.
So, for the audio
explain it
viewers.
for the listeners then.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Like, AVRL and I had Justice in top 3, which, of course, now in hindsight looks stupid. It doesn't look as dumb as Katie and Joe
one position
going 2nd. And now this man, like, has the audacity to go like, oh yeah, my own assumption was woeful. 6th place, woeful. DK, woeful. But, you know that London backline, bro. Maybe, you know. Man, like...
You are Reddit take level of, like, trying to tie this together into some sort of, like, fucked up flipper baby argument that just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. You sound dumb.
We need
one position off and you're like, oh shit, get out the bike helmet and the fucking whisk in the glass again. Like, you're dumb. You are dumb.
I thought you said something like 7th and now are ripping me a new one for saying top 3. No, you're just as dumb as I was. You're in the same position, in the same echelon. You ranked them there. Now, like, I don't know if they hurt you emotionally or what the...
Yes, they did. They wasted my time.
They were woeful.
I'll never get my time back. They were bad.
No, they weren't.
They were bad. Go back and watch that season. They were bad.
So okay, if they were bad,
yeah, and I don't think Houston was very good at the very tail end.
Please apply an adjective to the Vancouver Titans, then, please.
We're extremely bad. One of the worst teams.
So we are the difference between a 6th place team in an A and a last place team in an A is extremely, and both of them are bad.
Yes.
I hate
this.
You got
to gamble on Rhine metas. You got to gamble on Rhine metas. The second you put this kid, you put Mag on Winston, God forbid you put him on Ball, the team shits the bed immensely. So they only could play one thing the entire season. Then they stopped doing anything else but playing one thing the entire season, and then looked woefully bad. They did one thing. They were quite literally a one-trick pony team. I'm sorry.
This
is
I had this
professional
I had this
Overwatch.
Like with the same, you would then, for instance, like, okay, so were Vancouver Titans and Shock in season 2 good teams, and everyone else was trash or something?
You know that's not a fair argument. You know that's not a fair argument.
No, like I am advocate or trying to get you to the bright side of language where a team in 6th place is not woeful. Please don't inflate language. Please trade with some care. It's fickle.
I'm sorry.
They were mid-team. We'll just say they were mid then. How about that?
They were mid. That's fine.
Oh.
I am fine with mid.
Just say
I don't care
Washington,
what you're fine with. They were bad.
They beat Paris
Jesus.
in the plans too.
Yeah, Paris weren't very good.
Wait,
You look at the players on
wait.
Paris, and you look at the players on Justice. I don't think they add up, guys.
Shut up. You just said to a 6th place team, you said bad. To a 8th or 9th place team, you said not very good. Do you understand what my problem is?
For the king of nuance, I feel like it's crazy that a team with Naga and Dawn are viewed a little bit differently than a team with Mag and Decay.
I think
that's nuts to me.
I think the moral of the story is that if you haven't seen the London preview yet, you're probably confused by all this.
Yes, very
so you're gonna have to watch the London preview now as well.
That somehow I'm being cherry picked into talking about how decent some support line is, and conflating it to how bad a team was last year.
We get it. You're fire season.
Okay.
Like we know now that you're the Twitter account that worships a below average player.
Yeah, that's me.
Quite,
you got me.
That's quite generous, Yiska. So anything else about Washington?
Fire was below average. I don't know, sir definition, sir dictionary.
I think we've spent more time talking about last year's Washington than this year's Washington.
Right.
Yes, we have. There's one person to blame.
We got any other comments on this year's Washington instead of last year's Washington?
Yeah.
They have potential, right? I think we can all agree on that. They should, on paper, be good.
If they lose a game, they're bad though.
Could they be above mid? Because we established,
you make my blood boil.
We established that 6 out of 12 was mid. By definition, that's mid. That's literally as mid as you can get.
It is.
Outside of being 7th.
Yeah, no, I think they will
So
be a
can
mid
they
team.
be? Again, I actually have them 8th, which is below mid. Shit, I actually have them lower than mid. Wow, that's not a good sign.
No,
I have them below Houston. Maybe I'm gonna swap them around. I should probably swap them around. Maybe I have Justice 7th then.
Houston has upset potential. I'm looking forward to when we talk about them next time. But like, I think Houston can do something.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, I think they can be a good team. I'm not sure if I need to. I'm bringing like a dictionary.
I mean, you had to
time.
explain it to me last year. I was not a believer last year. I'll take that L for sure.
If you want to hear about how Yiska thinks Houston has, what did you say again? What potential? Upset potential?
Yeah, they have big upside. They can definitely like top 4. They could.
Okay, so we'll save it for the actual show. Right? If you want to hear about how Yiska thinks they could be top 4, you're gonna have to tune in to next week's team preview, where just like Attack on Titans, we're not gonna finish it this season. We're not. We're gonna save it for another season. So we're gonna call what the title of this episode is gonna be called NA Team Previews Final Season Part 1. And then you gotta wait for NA Previews Final Season Part 2. And then maybe we'll just save one. Maybe we'll just do 5 teams and not do the last team. We'll call that NA Previews Final Season Part 3.
Trust us, this time it's the end.
Just to fuck with you. But you will have to come back to listen about Houston, because we're done now for this week in this episode. We're done now for the Washington episode, where we, again, probably spent 50% of it talking about Washington from last year. Thank you for 221. This will be us signing out for both Washington preview as well as the episode in general. See you guys next week.